so sorry. No, 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 no. I'm sorry. Hi, Jen. Hi, Jen. How are you feeling? Did you hear anything? Oh my goodness, Jen. Bad. Like it's blurry. Crazy. Didn't used to be like that. Constant headache. Because mine's completely. If you put pressure on my brain, my cerebral artery is and my I have a headache since COVID. I'm dizzy, blurry. Like blurriness disappeared. Ah. John doesn't know much. I'm fine. I told him. Yes. No, it's crazy. Good. I feel like that happens. Why not?
Well, but so what I'm saying, it's
It
not fair.
depends. But if I get this new job, I'll be like earlier. I know. I'll try to. I really will.
Yeah, it's not fair. Why is this on?
I know. Your mics look so well.
Do we have
Oh my goodness.
the agenda?
It's very warm in here tonight. Or I'm having a hot flash. One or the other.
Should I go grab one? Thank you.
T-shirt on too. I was wearing a tutu and pigtails. I took those off. I know what happened. So I had a tutu shirt. Hey, Jen. My friend Jill did. Hi. How are you?
Hey, Jess. Hi, Suze. Hi. How was your trip? Hi, Kathleen. Yeah?
I should be coming back to you.
What?
No, no.
Well, we're glad you're here. All right.
Should I steal it from Chris?
This for my
Oh.
It would be nice if it was turned on, but that's all good. I'm loud enough. So, welcome and happy 2/2/22 to the Marlboro Township Board of Education regular meeting, February 22nd, 2022, 7 p.m. at Marlboro Memorial Middle School. Vin, can you please call to order?
Sure. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Mrs. Amster,
Here.
Mrs. Branch,
Here.
Mr. Petruno,
Here.
Miss Piernick,
Here.
Mrs. Rosato,
Here.
Mrs. Shrem,
Here.
Mrs. Salaci,
Here.
and Mrs. Strafasi,
Here.
and Dr. Heller.
Here. I will now read Sunshine Law. Be advised that this meeting is being held in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, PL 1975, Sunshine Law. and that the adequate notice of the date, time, and agenda has been sent to the Asbury Park Press and the News Transcript, and has been posted and filed with the Marlboro Township Clerk. Copies have also been sent to each district school and other area newspapers in accordance of the law. Not going to read in full, but will bring your attention to statement of videotaping of public portion of Board of Education meetings, public comments, statements, no smoking or vaping on school grounds. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Positive quote. The way I see it, if you want the rainbow, you got to put up with the rain. Dolly Parton. Policy number 0152 had a duplicate sentence that had been removed. The revision has been made and updated to the website. We're going to go on to student impact. Mr. Balone, student impact, please.
In response to issues facing the world today. The challenge is open to K-12 public school students in New Jersey. It lets students contribute to making the country sustainable, healthy, equitable, and safe. The New Jersey School Board Association created the program, which is sponsored by the U.S. Army. Students apply as teams to invent something new, modify an existing product, or identify a situation or real-world problem that needs attention. Teams are provided criteria and a panel of expert judges, their designs, and or solutions. The challenge supports the development of critical thinking and problem-solving skills, which will enable our students to compete in the global marketplace. Students identify real-world situations, solve problems, innovate, and present creative solutions. Congratulations to the students on an outstanding job, and best of luck at regionals. And we have a quick video for you, just so you can get a sense of the great work that they've done.
Project Goodbye Carbon Dioxide
by Maya Doshi and Gabriella Prince. New Jersey has a lot of factories that cause carbon dioxide. We can solve this problem by inventing a filter that inhabitants of New Jersey can plant in their gardens, indoors and outdoors. There are a lot of countries and states around the world that have CO2 in the air. This creation can help the world by preventing global warming.
You see that picture over there? Yes, that's fog. It's carbon dioxide. If you want to help decrease it, you can plant these filters in your gardens.
Oh no!
Hello everyone. Today we're going to be presenting Safe Glass Steam Tank Project by Anusha, Jocelyn, Adela, and Cynthia. About the product. Have you ever spilt something and just wished there was something you could do to prevent it from happening? Well, we got the thing for you. Our product, Safe Glass. Safe Glass helps prevent your glass cups from falling down. It serves as a coaster too and is made out of old and recycled material.
A design presentation created by Ariana Navarro Montes
And Paravi Jain.
Do you worry about the protection of your home? Well, we have a solution for you. The Masked Eye.
The Masked Eye is a portable camera that can be put to many uses. Whether you want it on your car, a light, a door, or a lock, just imagine all the possibilities. This camera will be connected to an app on your phone, similar to other camera products, and you can customize it to give you notifications and updates when necessary.
that's definitely some positive stuff that's going on. I appreciate that very much. And so well, let's move on. Vinny, motor vehicles abstract, please.
Sure, all abstracts were run and all have privileges in good standing.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Moving on to discuss COVID-19 protocol. Dr. Hibbs, please.
Thanks, Brian. Can you hear me? Thank you, Brian, very much. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about our recent changes. It's our second in just a few short weeks. So this is our dashboard from February 16th, 2022. Very happy to report that as of that date, the numbers were exactly the same. You might wonder why we didn't actually give you an updated one. The numbers were exactly the same. This is the picture that we had snipped, so I just went with it. So we have essentially 5 current student cases, 8 kids in quarantine, 4 staff, and then no positive and 0 staff in quarantine. So unanimously as a administrative team and also through our incredible school nurses, we decided that next steps were absolutely warranted. Right, about now. Good. Okay. So as far as contact tracing goes, we actually ceased contact tracing. So it ceased immediately, and we're not doing it at all. I just spoke to Lucy, who was ecstatic and felt as if she could be a school nurse again. So Luce, thank you, and all of our other nurses that are just incredible and have really given up so much of your free time to really That's positive. Thanks, gang. That's awesome. And it really is. And I'll say this too. We didn't have to ask our nurses to step up in any way, shape, or form. They stood there and they held it, and they held the line, no matter what the cost, no matter nights, weekends, holidays. They are just incredible human beings and beyond the right kind of people. Let's give another round of applause. So what that also means is that we are no longer going to notify parents of in-school close contacts because there are no more in-school close contacts. So there'll be no more emails to parents, although you are certainly still free to reach out to our school nurses if there's any questions that you need or any concerns that you have. And that would also go for students that are positive too. That obviously that communication line would never cease. As far as voluntary quarantines go, we're actually eliminating voluntary quarantines because we're not contact tracing. So there's no more voluntary quarantines. Lunch barriers is a topic that sometimes come up. Lunch barriers are on their way out, and in-person meetings are on their way back as of the 7th. So our honest hope is that as inside our buildings, as much as we can be, come March 7th, we're going to look as normal as we physically can, knowing that the last 3 years have been difficult for everyone in our community, our parents, our students, our staff. We're really trying to get back to normal, and I think we've taken very good steps to get to that place. Thanks, guys. As far as illness goes in our schools, same rules are going to apply. So the same protocols for COVID positives will still be there. Positive students are going to have to isolate for at least 5 school days, and the student can return on the 6th day provided that the symptoms are not in full flight and that they're waning. Obviously, we know this is not an exact science with this in more ways than one, pun intended, and sometimes it goes beyond that, and sometimes it doesn't. So whatever we need there to keep the kids safe and getting better, we'll work with that. And that really is without fever-free reducing medication for at least 24 hours. And the same rules for remote learning will apply. It will only apply to children that are actually out with COVID-19. That's really what we're trying to hold that line to. Okay, so inside our buildings, and I'm going to talk about the difference between inside and outside and how we're going to approach things. So inside our buildings, we are set to have the requirement expire as of March 7th. I'm sure a lot of us are exceedingly happy to have that go away. Every building has been tasked We had a very long ad meeting not too long ago, and every building has a plan to discuss with kids whether they wear masks or don't wear masks, that we respect everyone. And that's not something that we will hold people accountable for.
How about now?
Oh boy.
Brian, what are you doing to me? Okay, here we go. I should probably hold it here. Is that good? Okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
So we have a plan to discuss with all of our children. You know, we have to be respectful, and this is something that's constantly in our discussions with our staff, with our counselors. We really stress respect. So, you know, we will make sure that we are respectful on both sides, whichever that would go. If you wear a mask, you're respected, and if you don't, you're respected as well. And then we will enforce the order through March 7th. Okay, so lots of questions about transportation. So I'm going to give you a little bit of information. I'm going to try and make it very quick for you so you can see it. The CDC issued what was a federal order. It was a federal order that basically said that that school districts, which were included in transportation, had to still wear masks. So the federal requirement is for everyone to wear masks on conveyances and transportation hubs. The order became effective February 1st, 2021. I'm not weighing in on this yet. I will weigh in about my thoughts in a second, but this is legit. I'm not saying anyone has to agree with it, because you don't, clearly. And at this point, to be honest with you, I'm a little tired of the one side, left side, as in like we can take it off in school, but on transportation we can't, which really makes no sense to me whatsoever. But I've kind of given up trying to make sense of things that sometimes are way out of my control. But I'll tell you how we're gonna address it. I'll take the applause, thank you. So this is what the order actually states, okay? So essentially, they say that there's best efforts that we have to make. You know, if you're a conveyance operator, you have to board only those people who wear a mask. Well, you can see right there in bold. We're not doing that one. That's ridiculous. So we're never going to turn a child away. We would never turn any child away. So regardless of mask or no mask, we're not going to turn kids away. At the earliest opportunity, disembarking any person who refuses to comply. Well, we're only going to disembark in one of two spots. We're going to disembark when we get to school, or we're going to disembark when you get to your proper bus stop. So obviously we're not going to remove a child from a bus, ever, okay? Then, there's a couple others here, and I combined two of them to save space. So we're supposed to instruct persons that federal law requires wearing a mask on the conveyance, and failing to comply constitutes a violation of federal law. That was communicated to the community on 2/18. And then, in addition, we're supposed to provide notice to facilitate awareness and compliance. Also communicated to the community on 2/18 and also 2/22/22. So, my honest take. This entire federal order was really not crafted, in my opinion, for school buses. Because anyone that would craft an order that said that you should either throw kids off a bus or not let them on, I have serious problems with. So, you know, no school district should ever refuse to pick up a child, nor should they ever disembark a child. So the other three that are listed will be our best efforts, which are addressed tonight and were addressed on 2/18. For the record, I think it's downright ridiculous and unfair that we have a set of rules that applies in our buildings and the exact opposite applies outside of our buildings. I can't do anything about the fact that there's a federal order. I just can't. It's not up to me to make them align. You'll see down here below, I've already actually contacted Senators Booker and Menendez to basically advocate for parent choice on that, because I really do believe that that should be parent choice at this moment. So, you know, thank you. But that was the right thing to do, because, you know, we said all along that when numbers fell, we honestly would be comfortable, and we are comfortable. So, my take on this is, you know, we have, you know, children from preschool all the way through 8th grade. I don't know honestly how a little one is going to be expected to wear a mask, keep it clean, keep it sanitary, not put it in their pocket, not throw it on the ground, in their book bags. I think that's just a
an unfair expectation. So, you know, I will say very clearly that I have I think very well conveyed our requirements to our community about our best efforts. So we will not be removing kids, and we will definitely not be disembarking kids. So I trust that clears up a lot of questions, hopefully, on masks on our buses. And like I said, I already contacted our senators. So that's where we are. I wouldn't expect, you know, through the last 3 years, I would not expect anything to come federally, although I can't predict that, but I would not expect anything to come federally in any time in the near future. I just wouldn't. So this is probably how we'll be for a while, if not for the expiration of the year. And our intention is to get back to normal, have kids take off masks, know that we're not having cases right now in our building, and if we have to pivot for any reason, it's only going to be for the right reasons. But I honestly don't see that happening, because after January, our numbers they've catapulted downward, and to a spot now where, you know, in a district with 4,500-ish kids, we have essentially, you know, 5 cases right now. So we are hoping that this is not just the light at the end. We hope this is the end of the tunnel, and that we can get back to normal, because quite frankly, and I'm sure you can understand this, it's been exhausting for all of us. I want to recognize my staff. Yeah, thanks guys. I want to recognize my staff, because while I take a lot of bullets, they're doing the hard work with kids, and without them, we wouldn't do and put forth the great efforts that we put forth for our children, which is really what we're here for, right? We're really all here to educate the children of Marlboro, and we do that in a great and exemplary manner. So that's it. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hibbs, for all that information. Well, let's move forward. Dr. Hibbs, yep, I'll wait for you.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Danny, can you tell about the heat? It's hot in here.
It is hot in here.
Please.
Okay, so
If you're not cold, then it's hot.
superintendent goals. Dr. Hibbs, do you have any comments in regards to the superintendent goals?
So I just want to report out, these are my personal goals. So I think it's 6. I wanted to give a quick update on where we are. Yep, 6 through the fog. So my first one was to essentially update the road forward plan as necessary, and I think that honestly, through our last discussion, you know, that's been a constant focus. Again, mask free on the 7th. We communicated out our decision for transportation, the concept of respecting everybody, lunch barriers, kept a district dashboard all year. We had frequent administrators and nurses meetings. We constantly analyzed our Marlboro data, and then other precautions will honestly remain in effect probably forever, such as hand sanitizer, cleaning protocols, because we honestly think those are just really good practices. So those things will remain. They will remain moving forward. Second one was district culture and climate, and this really focused on the mental health of our students and staff. And you know, we're very lucky, we're very blessed to have 2 gen ed psychologists and 1 gen ed social worker. So, you know, Dr. Beery is our social worker, and then Dr. Asher Schultz and Dr. Baskin are 2 gen ed psychologists. You may not know this, but Marlboro is very lucky to have these 3 people, which also work with our gen ed population. And in addition, we have our incredible CST that help for our special education side. So we're very lucky to have all of those things. We have incredible school counselors and a strong system in our staff. We have good SEL work, which includes our competencies and our district pillars. We actually have our pillars by month, and they are celebrated in our buildings. And then I want to recognize Mrs. Tardio and Dr. Blair for their efforts in leading that initiative. As far as student achievement goes, you know, and professional development, you know, we actually, the last 2 years, we added an extra professional development day on, because quite frankly, With COVID, we had so much more that we had to tackle, and I think that will actually stay as an embedded practice in Marlboro, because I think that 4 days is really needed and necessary. I definitely want next year our convocation to be back. For those of you who don't know, we do a very big convocation, but I was honestly afraid to put everybody in a room together. God forbid we had an outbreak and I lost 100 staff members on the first day of school before kids arrived. So hopefully next year we'll be back to normal on that. We also are very lucky as far as PD goes. Hey, Brian, where's that coming from? You got that? No. We have reading coaches, math coaches, technology coaches, and our counseling staff that work directly with our staff as well. Comprehensive offering of academic supports, which includes common assessments that measure all of our student learning standards. We utilize Linkit to actually disaggregate our data, have a very strong system to analyze our data. Our teachers are awesome at that, and they actually discuss that in grade level meetings consistently. As far as innovative tools go, you may not know that we actually are doing a Promethean active panel installation. So all of our Promethean boards, they're essentially over 12 plus years old, and they are reaching end of life. So we actually are just in the finishing touches of K-2 and all special ed for our active panels. And then what we'll do is we'll seek to continue that implementation throughout years to come, so that we can then move forward with the active panels as opposed to Promethean boards. The difference mainly is an active panel will have something like a projector that's right there. Sorry, the active board will have the projector. The active panel looks like a very big interactive TV. So it won't have the bulb replacement, which could be very, very costly. I think they were in the neighborhood of $300 to $400 a bulb, right, Mike? Got the nod. 300, okay, perfect. Many online programs which we use and we use well, and then we are actually consistently recognized by our online programs and Google. Goal number 4 is infrastructure. I'm going to give Vinny a big shout out on this one. You know, Vinny is just such a pleasure to work with. He is a can-do and constantly dedicated employee. So, you know, we are finishing our roofing plan, and Mr. Caravello accelerated that this year due to some health benefit savings, and then we're also set to implement our air conditioning plan. For the first time in Marlboro history, our kids are going to have, at elementary schools, they're going to have air conditioning next year, which is a huge deal, right? Huge deal. Yeah. So Vin, great job. Not to mention, I won't give you all the other projects, but you can assume all the other things like concrete and paving and windows. The other one that we're super excited about, you may not know this either, but our district owns a dilapidated property right out front on 79 by Camelot. It's Morganville. It sat there dormant for years upon years upon years. You know, when Vinny came in, we really took a systems look at it, realized that it had really good bones, and it's actually in the midst now of its renovation. So, you know, it's almost all set for drywall and plaster, right, Vin?
They're right now.
And for those of you who don't know, buildings and grounds in Marlboro is kind of scattered to the wind. There's a little bit here, a little bit there. We don't have one consistent place for anything. This will allow us to have one hub where we put everything. It'll actually increase the size of our buildings. It will also allow transportation, because there's B&G stuff in the back corner to eliminate that, which will give us more parking. You know, if we ever do have to look at electric buses and need something along the lines for the electricity, we would have the space to do that. So massive shout out to Vin. Community interaction. We do newsletters, we do communications. In addition, Dr. Heller had a great idea of starting the MTPS board brief, and we all worked together on that, and the first board brief will be set to go this week. So Mrs. Tindorf is already working on that. It'll highlight all the actions of the board, and then we do videos. We do the school networks. You know, a lot of DeFino's back there. Shout out to DeFino. They do DDN, you know, which really highlights all of our kids. Yep. Mr. DiMaria does a fabulous job on that. He has a second calling, no doubt. And then social media as well. As far as technology goes, we use that for data. We also use that for our assessments. We have a host of online programs, the active panels. We've upgraded wireless and cameras. There's an update on the goals, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions? Kathleen? Oh, flip.
I just want to make sure, these are the goals that are wrapped into the merit pay. I just want to make sure I understand that correctly.
No, ma'am.
It's not wrapped into the merit pay.
No, ma'am.
Okay.
These are my superintendent goals,
Okay.
not my merit goals.
For goal number 2, it was about the mental health of our teachers, our staff, and our students.
Sure.
How many programs, or is that, I know it's obviously that's on a daily basis, but do you have special programs coming in to address that, or like how does that work?
Special programs that
Like, I mean, like, you working, I know before we had a program with Rutgers to come in and talk about the
Yes.
pillars, so that's what I'm referencing. Like, are we
Yep,
doing anything above and beyond?
Yeah, so we definitely have worked with Rutgers. A lot of the outside things that we would have used in the past were shut down due to COVID. So I can get you a list of what we actually have that would have come in, but I honestly don't think that we had much coming in from the outside, because I think honestly, Mrs. Amster, a lot of that was shut down. You know, field trips, assemblies, all things that look like that. You know, even people entering the buildings. That actually, it just didn't happen over the last couple of years.
Okay, so are we going to attempt to maybe work with a group, or would that's completely closed?
Sure,
because
no,
members-
absolutely. We would return to normal.
Okay.
100% partnerships would exist again.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Christina?
Thank you. Dr. Hibbs, I just had a quick question. These goals, are they SMART goals? Are they measured by anything? Specifically, let's say for your road forward plan, do you have to, is it a measurable goal?
No.
Any of these? None of them have to be measurable?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi. Sorry, I was as I was going through the agenda, I had a couple questions, if you don't mind. This being my first time seeing this, I was just out of curiosity, like do you set these goals, or?
These are my personal goals, yes.
Okay. And then as far as the going down to number 3, the remediation, the student achievement professional development, like what is the like the remediation protocol? Like what's the process for any assessments that are like that would come in low, like lower than would be expected?
Sure. Are you talking about our common assessments, Mr. Petrino?
Yeah, for the students. Yeah.
Great question. So, in theory, think of it this way. So we have curriculum guides and units of study, which our teachers can use to show everything about how to teach and ideas. And then we have a pacing guide that is detailed. And then what happens is our common assessments, they evaluate those pacing guides and those standards. Teachers then use Linkit to administer those assessments in most grades, and that gives them data. And then what they do then is they use small group instruction to remediate with the children on their opportunities for improvement. And then they also use our online tools to support them in that. Elementaries have a flex period where they can actually utilize that time. So in theory, if you got 4.MBTA1 incorrect in 4th grade, that would get remediated by the teacher in that moment, moving on. We believe very strongly in Marlboro that you should only be evaluated on what you've been taught, and that's how we operate. Other places do assessment differently. We don't believe that you should give a blanket test on something that the children have not been exposed to, and then assess again to see growth. I mean, growth is great, but we believe that this process, reaches and teaches the kids. So this happens in every classroom, for math and ELA, in the entire district.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Sure.
The reason for the question was essentially because I'm going to bring up my daughter, for instance, like her common assessment was astonishingly low, but meanwhile she's getting 96s and 97s on her report card, or like her final grades, and I just wanted to see, like, to make sure, I'm trying to figure out if it's a problem where she's having a hard time understanding, like, reading problems and doing problem solving and like that, because when it's just, for instance, like numerical equations, she can go through it, and reading she's fine, but then for some reason when it comes to the common assessment, like the number was half of what her grade was. So
yeah, I would reach out to your teacher on that one, so your teacher would be best poised to answer that question.
and then you could actually meet with the teacher and figure out the standards that she would have been more successful on, and then we can set you up with a learning path to remediate those standards. Some kids do better on common assessments than others, just like it would be for any assessment. But I think I would reach directly out to the teacher. But no, our averages for common assessments don't hover in the failing areas.
Right. Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
Yeah, sure. Happy to help you.
Yeah. Well, just to my last question, and it actually kind of segues into what you were saying, but it was about the community interaction. I don't know if maybe that goes out like with the results from the common assessments. Maybe just if there's any remediation or any procedures that the parents can do, like to like that. Maybe I don't know if that's relayed to them, but like my wife and I were discussing it, and we weren't sure. That might be it would be a good useful for the parents, like when they get the assessment, that if they need anything additional, just to let them know. The last thing I had was as far as the community interaction goes. I know we receive emails from the district, and it's fantastic, and I think that obviously the communication is good on that regard, being a parent. However, the community, we have a lot of residents who have kids that graduated or no longer in the district or in private school, and they're not, they're still tax-paying residents, but they're not privy to the emails because they don't have children in the school. And is it possible to maybe have like emails go out to the entire resident community instead of just the parents?
So yes, it's definitely possible. We actually have a community section, so anyone that would still like to receive an email just has to let my secretary know. I mean, as a practice, we go to the parents and guardians, but if they really want something, then we can put them on the community list. So if anybody asks you that question, just have them email my secretary, and then she'll put them on the community list.
Okay, yeah, no, I think what I meant was like the emails that you can sign up for to get from the community, for instance, like from, the township, maybe, using that list of emails, because that's all residents, and, any emails that would pertain to like.
Oh, no. No, we wouldn't just take the community list. First off, that's not my list. I'll make sure I'm understanding you correctly. Could I use the township's list?
Well, yeah, maybe using their list is the wrong explanation of it, but what I'm trying to see is if we can essentially, in our, when we communicate with the, with the community, right now we're communicating to parents with the emails. Yep. It's going, like, those emails go just to parents, like, perhaps, I'm sure residents, even though they don't have kids in the district, they're still paying taxes, they want to see what their money's going to.
Sure.
Just, I think it would be a good,
We could put it on the website clearly that if you'd like to receive the emails,
right.
Just email Mrs. Russo, and then she can add them. So what we have is, you won't see it in the back end of School Messenger. We have a community list. So it's all broken out by building, and then we also have a community list, because there's people that say, hey, I don't have kids, but I still want to hear the great things that you're doing,
right.
And we add them to that.
Okay.
So yeah, I think that gets you to your Chicago, right? You want, and anyone who doesn't have a child here, you want them to be able to see the great things that we're doing.
Yeah, and that's it. Anybody that has a
totally
vested interest in the community,
and we have a process for that now, just so you know.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Anybody else? Okay. Great questions. Vinny, 2020-21 school audit, please.
Sure. So we actually have Mr. Chris Bodeker here from Homeland Frenia to present our 2021 school year audit.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Can you guys all hear me? All right. Start off to introduce myself. My name is Chris Bodeker. As Vinny said, I'm a supervisor at HFA in charge of the audit this year. I've actually been on the Marlboro audit for several years now, so I'm very familiar with the district. I'm not going to take much of your time tonight. I know everyone's very excited about hearing about audits. I want to personally, though, thank Mr. Caravello, Mr. Jelinski, and their entire finance office. Throughout the process of an audit, we ask a lot. We have a lot of requests, a lot of reports, a lot of questions, and they are always right on top of it. They always give us answers as soon as we ask, so thank you to you guys. Normally, these audits are due in December, but the last few years, we've been delayed waiting on these reports from the state. We can't implement those numbers until they are given to us. So They were finally released a couple of weeks ago, and the new extended deadline is March 15th. So obviously I'm here tonight presenting. The audit's already been finalized, so we're filed timely. There's no issues there. In the audit, there is two things I like to point out. It's the letter of transmittal right in the beginning and management's discussion and analysis. These are they're shortened documents to kind of condense all the numbers and all the information behind that. It's a little easier to read. It's a little, it's easier to digest. And the letter of transmittal is actually prepared by the finance office, by Vinny and Chris. And it's one of the more extensive ones that I see at any of my districts, so that's great. One thing, I'm sorry. The most important thing, unmodified opinion. There's no issues. Unmodified opinion is the cleanest opinion that we can render. Everything was great. So in the opinion, there is one difference from years past. It's called an emphasis of matter opinion, or emphasis of matter paragraph, I'm sorry. This basically is discussing what this new GASB standard that was released during the year. It's not just Marlboro that's affected, it affected every school in the state. So it doesn't change the net bottom line of the financials, it just kind of moves around the presentation where certain funds are presented. The only numbers I'm really going to get into that really anyone cares about are our recapitulation of fund balances. This would be found on your C1. We have about 7.3 million combined in our capital reserves and our maintenance reserves. These are our designated reserves. We have a new reserve that's about 700,000. This is our unemployment reserve. This is what I was just talking about previously with that GASB standard. This is a number that's always existed, it's just now presented in a new spot. We had encumbrances at year end of about 2 million. We have a combined fund balance that was designated to be used in the budget we are currently in the 21-22 budget of 1.8. We have excess surplus of around 570,000 and unassigned of about 3.6. Those numbers, I know you guys will talk about the budget later, those numbers have to do with the 22-23 budget. Last thing, we are required to perform what is called a single audit for any grants or programs that the district receives over a certain dollar threshold. We don't have to look at everything. There's a certain program we use that we have to look at certain programs based on expenditures on a rotating basis. So that really what a single audit is we dive a little bit deeper into the grant of the program than we normally would, and just to make sure that the district is complying with any guidelines set by the federal government or the state. And we had no issues there, no findings. That was also an unmodified opinion. No corrective action plan is needed this year, which is always great. Like I said, no findings, unmodified opinion. And then lastly, I just want to thank again Vinny, Chris, Dr. Hibbs, the entire board for having me here tonight and letting us do the audit. That's all I have.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
All right.
Thank you very much. We really do appreciate your time. Thank you. Vinny, 2022-23 school year budget, please.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Allen.
Everybody hear me okay?
Got you, Vin.
All right, good evening, everybody. This will be our third presentation on the 22-23 budget.
by trade, so I'll try to speak up as best I can.
You're ready, Vinny. This one's gonna blow your hair off.
Is that better?
Yes.
So again, these slides will be put on the website tomorrow under the budget plan, but the state aid decrease is set for a little over $1 million, approximately $1,069,640. We are planning on taking a withdrawal of $1.4 million from capital reserve to finish our HVAC plan. Remember, the first half of that is coming out of the ESSER 3 funds, so we will be finishing that out of our capital reserve for the two schools. These are the state aid changes year by year. As you know, S2 started in 2018, 2019. Before S2, you could see that our total aid was $11,161,000, and it has decreased over time. We are in the last 2 years of our projected S2 cuts, but you can see an accumulation of about 4.8 million will be lowered from the start to the finish. So that is a pretty significant cut that we've been able to manage and get through year by year. We are facing the two biggest decreases from this current budget year that we're in and the proposed one of 22-23. This is just an overview of what our enrollment projections are scheduled to be. We do base these off of the 10-15-21 ASSA submission. So these numbers are a little bit higher as of right now, what current enrollment is, but the way we build our enrollment projection is based off of the October numbers. We are expected to see a slight increase of 48 students, but again, that's never a definite and it can always change. So this is just a pie graph just to show everyone percentage-wise and dollar-wise of exactly what's in your budget binders that were given to you last week. So this is basically just a breakdown of overall sections. So as you can see, as stated in the previous budget discussion, salaries and benefits account for over 80% of the total budget. If you factor in salary, benefits, and facilities, it's about 82 million of the total 92 million budget proposed. So it is a large chunk of what's being reported to you in your binders. Some of the budgetary highlights that you'll see comments and notes in your budget binder from us explaining what big variances or differences are. So some of the budgetary highlights are, we are proposing no program cuts to regular education or special education. No increase in current staffing levels. Since the enrollment is basically flat, we never propose an increase to staffing levels. Increased in curriculum writing for special education to meet the new NJDOE mandates. We are including new grammar textbooks for the elementary grades and new reading comprehension textbooks for kindergarten. Of that 8 million of facilities, 2.3 million in maintenance and facilities projects is designated to upgrade the district, as we'll get into that in a later slide. And then, of course, the 1.4 million withdrawal for the completion of the HVAC projects. And we do have to include our yearly interest payment for ESIP, and this year it's in the total of 902,000. Some more budgetary highlights on the transportation side. This is part of our regular routine. We budget for 5 54-passenger buses and 2 16-passenger vans. We just like to keep due to the wear and tear and the depreciating factor on buses, we like to keep a rotating schedule every year of making sure we have a good replacement plan in place. We have to increase due to what our PERS contribution is. So our PERS contribution is we as the employer are required to pay our PERS contribution, which is for PERS retirees. So we get that estimate sent to us from the state, and it is an increase this year for 22-23. We have been told that health benefits will increase anywhere from 6 to 10%, so we are budgeting 8% to be on the safe side in the event that they do increase. We did see a benefit holiday where the month of February, the employees did not have to pay any deductions, so that's where we were accumulating the savings to where we were able to start the roof in this year's budget. Well, we are including funding for the continuation of technology initiative, so we are budgeting, of course, for new Chromebooks, as we do every year to, again, try to keep a healthy cycle going, and iPads for the anticipated new sections of the kindergarten grade. We're on the second year of completing our upgrade of the 1 gig backbone in each middle school, so it's basically our 1 gig servers, and we're upgrading that to 10 gigs between the two schools. And we'll be running new fiber and installing new networking switches, and this is funded through the budget and also the federal E-rate program. Here's a breakdown of the 2.3 million projects that we discussed in the previous slide. So a further breakdown of, again, the 1.4 million for HVAC. We have 300,000 for concrete and asphalt repairs district-wide. So we will have an engineer be coming to site and assessing all of the whole district with myself and the B&G director to see exactly what we want to address with the budget that we have. Classroom and media center flooring at Dugan, repointing of brick at Marlboro Middle School, the hallway and classroom floorings at MMS. This is really the second and third floor hallways. Rooftop air unit replacements at Azure. They're at their end of life, so we have to replace them as well. We are starting a cycle of replacing the clock systems at Tofino and Dugan. A lot of them are still on analog. So there's new initiatives out there where you can actually get away from analog, save money on electricity, and actually go through a server process or Wi-Fi where they're wireless. So I did that at a previous school district, would actually save the district a good amount of money, especially with 8 buildings. Other projects district-wide, we always budget small projects, whether it be additional repointing, fencing, just more of maintenance for the actual facilities and the grounds. There are increases to the transportation budget that we have discussed before. Due to COVID, the bus driver shortage has intensified tremendously, to the point where it actually is affecting other indirect and direct costs associated with transportation, one of them being aid in lieu. We're actually starting to see an increase in aid in lieu where parents are actually paid $1,000 to transport their students to a private school. Joint agreements, we're starting to see contractors raise their rates. When we go out to quote for out-of-district contracts, whether it be for special education students or joint agreements, we're starting to see a big increase in that from the contractors. And sometimes that is required if it's required in IEP and we can't provide the transportation in-house, we have to go out to bid. Gasoline and diesel, I'm sure everybody is seeing it, just the gasoline prices are skyrocketing. We have to anticipate that they're gonna stay like this, so we do budget accordingly, but they can always come down. Lease and the purchase of buses, again, we're starting to see in the market it is very hard to get vehicles, so we anticipate that if we are able to get the 5 buses and 2 vans that we would like to replace, we're going to see that at a higher cost, or possibly a pretty big delay as far as receiving them. So the next steps in the budget process, so the governor's budget address was actually delayed. It was scheduled to be tonight or today, but he pushed it back 2 weeks to March 8th. Normally we receive the state aid numbers 48 hours after the budget address. So until then, our numbers, this is a tentative budget. They could change depending on what our exact state aid is. And then Tuesday, March 22nd, we will have our preliminary budget on there for approval at the March 22nd board meeting. And then final adoption will be in the second April meeting. So that is it for the presentation. So I know everybody received their budget binder, so just giving you an overview. If you'd like to open up to questions, myself and my assistant BA Christine Jelinski are here to help.
Thank you very much, Vin. I really do appreciate it. Anybody have any questions? I see none.
Good job, Vin. Good job, Chris. Thank you very much.
And again, if anybody would like to set up a meeting to meet individually to go over their budgets, I'm happy to do so. I know some board members have reached out already.
That's great. Thank you so much for, giving over your time for that. Thank you. So before we start our public sessions tonight, As part of the policy committee, it is our duty to review current policies and to ensure that they provide structure that is beneficial and relevant to today's needs. Before I speak to this, I want to publicly thank former board member Michael Linsky and those former board members for taking the time out of their schedule and attending last meeting and sharing their thoughts on policy updates. As a current board member, I want to thank you all for your time and service. We know how much time and effort goes into making policies, and we don't take this lightly. You built the platforms to success, and we are grateful to take the baton and continue moving the board in a positive direction. Without the policies in place that you developed, we wouldn't have been able to get there where we are today. Thank you for your hard work and continued dedication to MTPS. It is with the same passion to continue serving the community that we reviewed the current policies to ensure we are providing the very best in the most effective and efficient manners to the members of the Marlboro and to the MTPS community. After a deep review, community member discussions, and listening, we have concluded that only minor modifications and adjustments would be warranted. Now, on to public comments. Those who wish to speak should state their full name and place of residence. Comments should be limited to 3 minutes. Please use the timer in front to be mindful of your time. Members of the public should be respectful and avoid back and forth or debate with administration, professionals, or board members responding to inquiry or comment. We will respond when necessary once the individual has completed their statement. Again, no back and forth. Be respectful and civil. Members will withhold comments until after public comments, if they so choose. Vin.
Sure. First up is Mr. Dave Straddick.
Good evening, Dr. Hibbs, Dr. Heller, and valued board members. My name is David Straddick, and I'm the proud principal at DeFino Elementary School, and I reside in Pennington, New Jersey. I first want to thank the board for volunteering to support our schools and for the countless hours you devote to our students, staff, and the community. I also want to recognize everyone seated up front for remaining poised and setting a positive example in the face of unprecedented disrespect and abuse that occurred at the last BOE meeting. DeFino's recognition as a Blue Ribbon School nominee and the acknowledgement of Dr. Asher Schultz quickly became background noise to yelling, screaming, and insults. There were several individuals who have no vested interest in our schools, yet they stood up and spewed hate and misinformation. The BOE meeting gave them a forum for these antics we would not tolerate from our students. The most commonly stated reason for this anger was the mask mandate. As the Board of Education, and anyone who has done any research on the topic understands, a mask mandate from the governor is not something schools can choose to ignore. To my knowledge, there's not a single public school in the state that has ignored the mask mandate. So the extreme anger is misguided and misplaced. That being said, if your focus was geared towards parent choice for masks, the BOE and Dr. Hibbs acted extremely quickly to communicate the change would happen as soon as humanly possible. So that begs the question, why are you up here screaming at them? At DeFino, we encourage our students to engage in intellectual discourse. We tell them it's okay to disagree with another person. When we begin this process in the early primary grades, we often provide students with sentence starters, like I respectfully disagree with Levi because. We teach students disagreeing is okay. Being mean, hurtful, and disrespectful when you disagree is not. My question is, why are adults not being held to the same standard? Why are we not modeling our ability to manage emotions? Why are we not setting the best example for the children of this community? Because if it's truly about the children, then we should carefully consider our words and actions, especially when those actions become part of our digital footprint and can be viewed online by families, friends, employers, and community members for years to come. As Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, our lives begin and end the day we become silent about things that matter. This quote resonated with me as I watched the last BOE meeting. I believe strongly that the actions of a small group of people should not tarnish the reputation of this outstanding community. It is time we all take a stand and bring back civility, respect, and kindness. To the board, in whatever way you develop policies, consider ways that we can put measures in place so that a few people cannot derail meetings with disrespectful and hateful tangents. My hope for the future is that concerns or issues are shared respectfully without yelling, pointing, aggression, or insults. It is what I would expect from any student at Defino and my own children. I hope that moving forward we will see more positive examples of adults engaging in disagreements in a respectful and civil way. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vin.
Sure. Next up is Mrs. Lisa Nabolsi.
Good evening. My name is Lisa Nabolsi, Marlboro, New Jersey. I'm in a very unique position. I've lived in Marlboro for 21 years. My 3 grown children went through the Marlboro schools and are now very successful young adults. We moved here for the excellent school system. When my kids went to college, they saw they were far better prepared for the academics than their peers. When we moved here, it was for the schools. We were right. It was one of the best decisions we ever made. I now work in the schools. I'm an instructional assistant and work for Champions in the after-school program. I'm also the president of the Marlboro Educational Foundation. I'm with kids from 9 o'clock to 6:30 every day. To say I love children is an understatement. The children today are fortunate enough to be receiving the same excellent education that my children received. The expression, no good deed goes unpunished, definitely fits during these tumultuous times. Often, we only speak up when we need to make a complaint. When we're satisfied with decisions, we remain quiet. I understand that everyone has their individual perspectives based on their circumstances and their experiences. My perspective has grown and widened during the pandemic. Working within the schools has been an immensely trying time for everyone. I'm speaking tonight to let you know that I'm so very grateful to the past and present Board of Education, Dr. Hibbs, Mr. Ballone, Mr. Caravello, and the rest of the administration. What they have done to keep the staff and children safe in these challenging times is truly amazing. They've done all while continuing to keep the lines of educational standards exemplary. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you very much. Vin?
Sure. Next up is Jasmine Heller.
Hi, I'm Jasmine Heller. No relation to Dr. Heller. I live in Morganville. I was just here, I wanted to say, my daughter was in the LEAP program that was going on for the last couple of months. She really enjoyed it. I really liked it, actually. I saw a definite improvement both in her confidence and in her scores in math. Both of us were really sad when it ended. I was kind of wondering if there was going to be another program like it for the spring or in the future. I really think it was a good program to help bridge the natural gap that happened with learning loss because of the pandemic. So that's my first question. And then I just wanted to address a little of what happened at the last meeting when I was here. Apparently there was a woman here who had attended and she had emailed Dr. Hibbs. I did not know until after the fact that she was not a parent in the district, nor was she a stakeholder in our town. So I'm actually very happy that Dr. Hibbs did the due diligence to verify that information. I think that it's important that Dr. Hibbs knows who he's speaking to before disclosing information about our district, so it doesn't compromise the safety and security of our children. So I really appreciated that care for that. I hope that going forward, we can refocus all our attention back on the thing that we care most about here, which is our children and their education. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you very much. Oh, Vinny, sorry.
Dr. Heller.
Sorry.
Yeah. Next up is Mrs. Diana Grant.
Good evening, members of the board. Diana Grant, Morganville, New Jersey. Last board meeting, I stood here and spoke to you about the unethical and horrific treatment of my 6-year-old daughter that she received in school. I told you about our nights in the emergency room with our child and over 3 years of steroids medication she had to endure to finally be able to control her breathing. That's half the life of a 6-year-old. It was done to control a chronic health problem of a child, of my child, a problem that is not important enough for any of you to show real care for. Yes, my husband spoke to the building administrators the following day to try to figure out who is responsible for such policies, who makes such decisions with our schools. Upper administration was the answer. And after multiple inquiries about the definition of upper administration and who would have to be involved in regards to the potential amending of such harmful policies, the name Hibbs and Ballone came up, no one else. Since I spoke here last, and until this minute, not one board member reached out to inquire about our daughter's condition, to ask if everything's okay, if we're comfortable with the situation, if there's anything that we believe needs additional attending. Nothing in regards to well-being of our daughter, your student. Nevertheless, my husband was contacted by an MTPS employee once since then, just to be threatened with a letter from the Marlboro Board of Education school safety supervisor, alleging that he has disturbed 2 consecutive board meetings and referring him to NJSA 2C338, suggesting that he has committed criminal crimes when doing so. One event mentioned was referring to January 18th, where his usage of the word hell apparently disrupted the meeting, and the second alleged violation argued to have happened on February 8th meeting, stating that his rude conduct with a security MTPS employee near the exit door, very long after the board meeting was motioned to be closed, second, and closed, when in fact my husband was trying to stop the security man from harassing him on our way out to go home. I was there right next to my husband. The letter also stated that it's his final warning and that if he is to disrupt the board meeting again, he will be prevented from attending further VOE meetings and potentially be charged with a criminal crime as he was directed, advised, and referred to study the legal language under NJSA 2C338.
Thank you. Vin?
Next up is Mr. Moshe Grant.
Good evening, everyone. Moshe Grant, 8 Sudbury Road. I don't believe that there are many members in our community that ever really found my comments here to be offensive. Yet it's my belief that the only person in this room to repeatedly disrupt an active Board of Ed meeting, repeatedly speaking without standing, is sitting right here in front of me. Earlier today, a lawsuit was filed against the district with the United States District Court. Yes, this lawsuit will be a long endeavor. Nevertheless, when becoming a United States citizen, I pledged allegiance to our flag and to the republic for which it stands. And most importantly, with liberty and justice for all in the end of it. Therefore, it's my duty as a citizen in our great nation to challenge what I believe to be wrongdoing in an effort to protect myself, my fellow community members, and our offspring. Now, such endeavors are very expensive to pursue, but you left me with no other choice than being fearless in my pursuit of my beliefs and follow my heart. While some here with existing pending ethical violations are adding on the back of our children over $200,000 a year to their personal fortune, I, as a loving man and as a loving father, as the owner of my biological property, will invest as much a fortune as need be to protect my offspring against any unethical wrongdoing. If I do win, and I believe that the truth will prevail, and there will be any monetary proceeds, after covering the expense related to such lawsuit, I will donate absolutely every penny of any remaining proceeds to keep fighting for them, for our children, against any act that will deprive them from their rights under our flag, the same flag that you pledged allegiance to. Bosses, Mr. Hibbs, the CDC is not a legislative body within the United States government. and cannot mandate Americans and citizens with laws. The only reason suddenly you and the rest of the board are so supportive of the removal of all the COVID-19 protocols in place is not thanks to anything that you're doing, and it's not thanks to the governor. It's thanks to millions of parents around the state who've been fighting their hearts out to fight tyranny on the toughest and highest levels in the state. Now, if you're not fighting tyranny, you're helping tyranny.
Thank you. Vin?
Sure, next up is Mr. Lenny Thor.
Lenny Thor, Marlboro, New Jersey. I was very excited about the letter I received today from Special Services. I think that the social skills program for our kids is terrific. Our paraprofessionals, child study team members, therapists, teachers, directors, and supervisors in the special education department always go above and beyond for our kids and are always willing to listen to us. Our district has been recognized by Google and achieved 3,000 for the great things that go on here. However, the conduct of certain people at our last meeting was inappropriate and quite frankly embarrassing to our town. It was a night when we should have been celebrating that one of our schools was nominated for a Blue Ribbon Award and that 2 of our elementary schools made the top 15 in Monmouth County. Instead, we had outsiders invited here by negative people who will do anything they can to sabotage these meetings. The disrespect shown to our Board of Ed, administration, and police officers was terrible. Our last meeting made 3 newspapers because of how inappropriate some people acted. There are people posting things online to try to intimidate some of us into not speaking out. We will not be intimidated. We are now being called bullies after we've been bullied for close to 2 years for our opposing views. Did you ever hear the saying, you can dish it out, but you can't take it? Masks are optional starting March 7th. Dr. Hibbs made that announcement quickly after the governor ended the mandate. I'm not sure what the next complaint is going to be. I hope that going forward, topics that are more focused on our kids and their education can be discussed in a civilized manner. Thank you and have a great night.
Thank you. Vin?
Sure, next up is Mrs. Christy Hutchings.
I would like to thank Dr. Blair, Ms. McCarthy, and Ms. Mortar for listening to parent feedback to increase the communication provided to families overall and also the planning for ESY 2022. I would also like to extend a thank you as a parent to the special education teachers and staff that worked so hard this winter. We know it wasn't easy, especially with quarantines, illness, and shortages, and I think we're all looking forward to brighter days ahead. I know budget season is upon us, and I have been closely monitoring Bill S905, S1281 at the state level that would extend requests for compensatory education from pandemic-related learning loss out to September 2023. Will our school's district's budget provide adequate reserve to support these requests that might come in throughout the 22-23 school year? And then I have an additional question. I think it's directed at the Building and Grounds Committee, but I'm not entirely sure. But is there an update on being able to complete a playground safety assessment, especially related to proximity of fencing, to play structures, and also to busy roads and wooded areas? With the warmer weather quickly coming upon us, it would be great if surveys of our playgrounds could be done to determine what can be implemented so that all children could play safely and freely on our district playgrounds. I have an additional recommendation related to recreation. Could the school district look into future consideration to install acoustic panels in the gyms? My son started playing basketball in a gym at a school in Freehold, and my daughter observed that they have sound panels on the walls of the gym that significantly cut down on the noise in the gym, which for our children with sensory needs would improve their experience in the gyms. Finally, I want to thank the Special Services Department for their support and planning of activities for Disabilities Acceptance Month in April, and we look forward to celebrating all of our diverse learners. Thank you.
Thank you. Vin, please.
Next up is Mrs. Annette Seward.
Good evening, Annette Seward, 18 Nashua Drive. Tonight I'd like to dedicate my 3 minutes to a young boy named Drake Hardman. He was a 12-year-old boy from Utah who took his life after being bullied at school, allegedly. And if this is really about the kids, I would like to keep the conversation going with mental health issues in the district and maybe using some of the leftover ESSER funds or whatever ESSER funds was used to purchase the testing, to give children the resources to decompress post-COVID in school, because the cleanup is sometimes harder than the party. So I just would like to take a moment for Drake. Thank you.
Thank you. Vin, please.
Sure, next up is Mrs. Linda Winter. Okay. Any Linda Winter here? Okay, it's okay. Okay, next up is Mr. Leo Dableman.
Good afternoon. Leo Dableman, 51 Buttonwood Drive, Marlboro, New Jersey. I missed my first meeting last month, and it sounds like I missed a lot. Like a lot. Kind of glad I missed it from what I hear, but you know, just obviously everything that this meeting started with, thank you to the board for all your hard work to get us to a clear path forward. I hope there's some recognition of the fact that your repeated calls to those of us who have come and asked you to take action, that we in turn speak to state legislatures, assembly people, governor's office, executive folks, didn't go unheard. We in fact spoke there a lot, and eventually somewhere, somehow there was a positive breakthrough that I think we're all fairly happy about. So those of you who think that we only come here to speak, that certainly was not the case. We took our case pretty much everywhere we could have taken it. The only other thing I kind of wanted to address is I always try to be respectful, whoever I speak to and whatever the forum is. I know other people try as well. I'd like you to consider that if a parent is up here with quite a bit of emotion and perceived negativity or real negativity, that may very well be because their child is in pain, in real pain. I am very happy for several of the previous speakers who are able to control their emotions well, who are able to keep up decorum, but consider that those parents who are not able to are not necessarily bad people. Consider that there might be children to whom real harm has been done in this process. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Vin?
Sure, next up is Mr. Nicholas Ferreira.
Hello, board, members, parents. Thank you all for being here. It's when you guys come that you know, shows your support and that change is made. Name's Nicholas Ferrara. A little bit of my background. I graduated from Rutgers Camden School of Law. Placed second in my graduating class. Was executive editor of the Law Journal. So I know how to do research, and I've been doing a lot of research ever since 2020. I was going to come and harp on the masks, but I'm glad you guys made the right decision in that regard, as there's no proof the masks stop anything. In fact, it's like trying to stop a gnat with a chain link fence. So it really was never about health. So the question then is, what was it all really about? And will it come back? And it most certainly will, because it's not about health at all. We have a Marxist communist revolution that's going on, and they're attacking our children. Maybe some of you school board members know this, or even a part of it. But I'm well aware of it. It's documented heavily, and it's very important that you guys keep speaking up in order to make changes. That's why changes are made, because people are getting involved, and that's why I'm running for Congress as well, and here in the 3rd District. I plan to put a stop to all the shenanigans that are going on. So that's pretty much it. Again, I was going to harp on the mask, but I'm glad you guys made the right decision. I hope you did it for the right reasons, not because a lawsuit was filed. But either way, at least the right thing's being done. And in the future, when something like these masks come up, I hope that you're going to stand up, because there's documented proof, peer-reviewed studies of the detriment that masks cause with learning, with the lack of oxygen and inhalation of carbon dioxide, and there's not any benefit proven, not one. They don't do anything except make people obedient, subservient, and follow orders, which is exactly what a communist revolution wants with the young generation. So I hope everyone's aware of this. You're going to see a lot more of it, and that's why I'm running for Congress, to put an end to it.
Thank you. Vin, please.
That is it for first public comment.
Okay, would any board members like to make any comments? Okay, so we. There you go, okay. I would like to make a motion to close public comments. All in favor, say second, please. Christina. What? All in favor? Please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. The ayes have it. We're going to be moving forward. Can I ask about public comment? Does anybody have any comments? Public comments? No, board members commenting to the, yes, or administration, I'm sorry.
Yep. I can go very quickly. Mrs. Heller, Mike, Mr. Balone, thanks, Paul. You want to take the concept of LEAP?
Mrs. Heller, since this is a singular issue, I can certainly reach out to you in conjunction with building administration and talk about meeting and the timeline and set it up this year. So I will do that for you.
Thank you, Mike. So as far as our budget and S905 and 1281, in discussing with Vinny and also with special ed, we definitely think that we have comp ed already built into the budget, so I think that we'll be fine in that one. Ladies, we did also talk about, I have our special ed department over here. Shout out to our incredible staff. I'll just take this one. The concept of the playground safety, we actually did a few tours, especially of the places that were brought up, and there is one spot in particular that we're going to extend a fence that we thought absolutely made sense, so we absolutely did that. And as far as the acoustic panels in the gyms for the sensory issues, Vin, I think that's something we could probably look into, correct?
Yeah, we can definitely look into that.
Okay, so I think those are the 3 stars I had there. Mrs. Stewart, we definitely had money put aside for mental health, and I think you are entirely right. A lot of times that, I think you said cleanup, but the reality is we have to address the needs of all of our kids in a very real and caring way. This is all the last 3 years, and I said it before, we've all had different experiences, each and every one of us, and this has all affected us differently, and we have to be mindful of that and addressing each child individually as well. Sir. No worries. Ladies, was there anything from the special ed lens you wanted to add? You're okay? Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I really do appreciate that. Aldo?
Thanks, Randy. Just real quick, two things. The speaker who came up, I believe it was Ms. Hutchins, with the playground assessments. The Building and Grounds Committee, we're scheduling a meeting for the next week or two, and afterwards, if it's all right, I'd like to see if I could reach out to you and see specifically which, what areas you were talking about, because I'm not familiar with them myself yet, so that I, hopefully after the meeting we could set up like a tour of the playground to see the areas to address it. And then the second issue was for Ms. Seward's comment. Just a recommendation. I believe prior to us being on the board, there was a pandemic committee when the pandemic first started. Perhaps, an ad hoc committee, maybe like a post-pandemic committee to make sure there's, a smooth transition for the children is something that we could look into, to make sure that the children are, supported and getting what they need.
Yeah, so we created the Safety, Security, and Counseling Committee. So that committee will absolutely address that, and we'll go forward. So that's the reason for my purpose of creating that committee, which everybody agreed to. So we're going to move forward with that. So that's going to focus on mental health as well as physical security. So that's important. So great question.
Thanks, Randy.
Yeah, and yeah, that's it. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. I see none. So we are going to move forward, ladies and gentlemen. Bear with me. Okay. Okay. We're going to move forward to communications. Dr. Hibbs, communication, please.
No, sir.
Okay. Dr. Hibbs, superintendent report.
Sure. For the time frame of February 3rd, 2022 through February 16th, 2022, 0 incidents.
Thank you very much. Dr. Hibbs, harassment, intimidation, bullying, HIB report for February 3rd to February 16th, 2022.
No incidents.
Thank you.
You got it.
Aldo, can you please read policy development and community relation matters?
The superintendent of schools submits the following resolution for approval. 1, change of the meeting date.
I so move.
I so move.
Do I have a second? Kathleen? Any discussion? I see none. Vinny, roll call, please.
Sure. Mrs. Branch?
Yes.
Ms. Piernick?
Yes.
Mrs. Rosado?
Yes.
Mrs. Shrem?
Yes.
Mrs. Salachi?
I will not be there, but yes.
Mrs. Strafasi?
Yes.
Mrs. Amster?
Yes.
Mr. Petruno?
Yes.
And Dr. Heller?
Yes. Meeting dates, Tuesday, March 8th, 2022, workshop meeting, and Tuesday, March 22nd, 2002, regular meeting. Jessica, can you read approval of minutes?
Sure.
Starting with number 2, right, Randy?
Approval of minutes. Be it resolved that the minutes of the following meetings be approved as submitted.
I so move.
Sorry.
December 21st, 2021, both the regular and the executive sessions. January 4th, 2022, reorganization. January 18th, 2022, both regular and executive meetings.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I so move.
Oh, thank you. Sorry about that. Do I have a second? Christina? Yes. Do I have any discussion? I see none. Vinny, roll call, please.
Sure. Mrs. Shrem?
Yes.
Mrs. Salachi?
Yes.
Mrs. Strafasi?
Yes.
Mrs. Amster?
Yes.
Mrs. Branch?
Yes.
Mr. Petruno?
Yes.
Mrs. Rosado?
Yes.
Ms. Piernick?
Yes.
And Dr. Heller?
Yes. Vin, Secretary Business Report, please.
Sure. So we are submitting the Board Secretary's monthly certification for the month of January 2022.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Vin, payroll certification, please.
Yep. This is the payroll certification for the month of January 2022.
Excellent. Now we're going to be moving on to committee reports. So I'm going to ask Susie, Building Grounds and Beautification.
We have a meeting on Thursday, so I will have more to report next meeting.
Beautiful, thank you. Jessica, Communications.
We have a communications committee meeting on March 1st, so I will have more to report out at the next meeting.
Excellent. Christina, Curriculum, please.
Yes, we had our meeting earlier today before the board meeting. Oh, sorry. We discussed the budget for the 22-23 year, specifically textbook purchase list. We need to purchase textbooks for math K and 3, science K through 5, social studies K through 5, and literacy ELA 1 through 5. Typically, textbooks need to be renewed and replaced every 6 years, and those are up in their cycle. We also discussed policy 2624, which speaks specifically to grading systems as a way to measure, record, and report achievements for students. We broke down the meaning of grades, qualitative versus quantitative, specifically to say that unusually fine work is in the 90 to 100% range, above average work 80 to 89%, average work in 70 to 79%, below average 65 to 69%, and failing is 64% to 0. And then we discussed the common assessment, the second one, the data that was released. And basically ELA and math both showed average to above average results. And so, Mr. Ballone, did you have anything to add to that?
There we go. No, I don't. Did you just want to talk about that last piece, the school level data flow chart and the district level flow chart, which actually speaks, Mr. Petruno, you had a question about this earlier, so I think it would be good.
So there were two flow charts. The first was basically on the school level. The common assessment is administered. From that point, then teachers and building admin both analyze the data that comes in on each grade and class. They then meet to discuss their findings and develop a collaborative plan. Then small group instruction is implemented to remediate. They follow up at their team meetings to discuss how that small group instruction was implemented. And then teachers basically assess students and check for growth. They could either give a formative or summative assessment, and they continue their discussion and the schools offer professional development and curriculum revision. I did bring up, actually, similarly to you, when my son was also in first grade, I had the same exact question as you. He got a 55% on the end of year assessment, which is not the common assessment, but he was getting 98, 100 all year. And so the question that I posed to Mr. Ballone was, do we maybe need to perhaps analyze if there's a gap here in our instruction? If our classroom tests are giving results that are 98, 100%, and then our common assessments or end of year is a 55, there's obviously some kind of correlation issue that we need to investigate. And Mr. Ballone had mentioned that, we, the district, and jump in if I'm wrong in any way, but if they're basically creating these common assessments, they're rigorous standards, and that teachers are basically always having these ongoing conversations about how their instruction needs to change in order to remediate any confusion that's happening on a grade by grade basis. Is that correct, Mr. Balone?
That is, yeah, and specifically with the math end of year assessment, it's a cumulative assessment on the major standards over the course of an entire year. So we do see a little bit of a pullback on the end of year assessment, but then over the summer, what we do is we provide standards, how the students did on the standards, and then we provide suggested summer work that students can tackle via our online programs, or in other ways that families deem necessary, that they could at least have the information so they know going into the summer where their students were deficient.
Good?
That's it, Randy.
Thank you so much. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it. The policy committee, I already mentioned during my earlier comments. We're going to move forward to the safety, security, and counseling committee. Jen?
We are working on a date to meet.
Okay.
As we speak.
Perfect. Beautiful. And Kathleen, the special education?
I've reached out to Dr. Blair. We're just trying to finalize a time that's good for the three of us and her.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Financial and business operation matters. Christina, can you please read financial and business operation matters?
The superintendent of schools submits the following resolutions for approval. 1, transfers. 2, list of bills. 3, secretary monthly reconciliation reports. 4, harassment, intimidation, bullying, HIB report. 5, travel. 6, home instruction. 7, approval of agreement with Monmouth Ocean Educational Services for the provision of 1 home instruction teacher. 8, application to participate in SEMI for the 22-23 school year. 9, withdrawal from maintenance reserve for partial roof replacement at Robertsville Elementary School. 10, out-of-district placement. You gave me the long one. 11, approval of agreement, United Therapy Solutions. 12, approval of agreement, Helping Hands Therapy Services. 13, donation. 14, approval of contract, professional services agreement with Center State Engineering. 15, settlement agreement. 16, disability insurance. 17, award of bid, resolution to award installation and implementation of exterior IP camera systems at Marlboro Memorial Middle School, and alternate bids for Marlboro Middle School, Transportation Building, Bus Garage, and Asher Homes Elementary School. Still going. 18, amended resolution, state contract purchase, Allegiance Trucks, DBA, Mid-Atlantic Truck Center for repair parts for buses and vans for the 21-22 school year. 19, audit report for the 2021 school year. 20, ESC-NJ contract purchase, Mall Chevrolet for purchase of a transportation vehicle for the 2021-2022 school year. 21, change order number 1, Marlboro Township Public Schools alternate bid, Marlboro Middle School exterior door replacement. 22, state contract purchases. I so move.
Good job.
Very good. Do I have a second?
I second.
I saw Kathleen first, so I'll go with Kathleen. Any discussion?
Sure, just a quick comment on the transfers, page 9. The transfers for $6,000. The left side, the 11-150-100-101 is actually the wrong account, so we will be changing that. So it should read 11-000-219-100, and it should not be salary, home instruction, general ed. It should be extra work, LDTC.
I have a question.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Question, please.
Agenda item 17, the exterior IP camera systems at Marlboro Memorial Middle. Did we get other bids for that? I only see CM3. We did?
Yeah, so we got, I believe we got about 7 or 8 bids. We had the bid opening. They were the lowest. We actually send the 3 lowest bids to our attorney for review after myself and our purchasing agent review them as well. And then once all the paperwork is in order, we bring it to the board for a approval. And so CM3 was the lowest out of the bid.
Thank you, Vin.
I have a question.
Kathleen?
On number 18, the increase, is that because of the price of everything has gone through the roof? I'm assuming?
Yeah, so I believe we actually had to increase it because the Mid-Atlantic truck for repair parts, they're just having a hard time getting parts, and the few that they do have, they're actually charging a good amount for them, so we're actually having to increase the threshold in which we've been purchasing them at.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I see none. Vin, roll call, please.
No, Aldo.
Oh, sorry, Aldo.
Sorry. Just real quick. Just on agenda item number 14, the professional services with Center State. How, like, what is the process for that? So when we get the engineering service, do we go out to bid for that for like various different engineering firms, or is this one firm that we like are using? You know.
So this is a professional service that we've used in the past when it comes to district-wide asphalt repair. So we actually work with them to help us in building our bid specifications based off of designs that they see. So they're really engineering the process, and then we'll submit the bid out, and then we'll actually receive bids back from contractors who are willing to bid on the asphalt repairs that we're proposing. So they basically assist us in the process of putting together the bid specifications, what to look for, exactly what to include and require from contractors to bid on the job.
Right, right. Okay.
But for professional services contracts, usually you can set out an RFQ and RFP. You necessarily don't have to, but if you have worked with a past vendor before that does quality work, we try not to differentiate from that and bring someone in who might not do a good job.
You good? Okay, thank you. Any others? Okay, Vin, roll call, please.
Sure. Mrs. Branch?
Yes.
Mr. Petruno?
Yes.
Ms. Piernick?
Yes.
Mrs. Shrem?
Yes.
Mrs. Salachi?
Yes.
Mrs. Strafasi?
I have to abstain on number 7 and number 11, and everything else, yes.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Amster?
Yes.
Mrs. Rosado?
Yes.
And Dr. Heller?
Yes. Susie, can you read curriculum matters, please?
Yes. Curriculum matters. The superintendent of schools submits the following resolution for approval. 2022 extended school year program. I so move.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Christina? Oh. I gotta like go back and forth in my head. Any discussion? No, I don't see anyone. Vin, roll call, please.
Sorry, Dr. Heller, who was the second?
It was Christina.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, roll call vote. Mrs. Salachi?
Yes.
Mrs. Strafasi?
Yes.
Mrs. Amster?
Yes.
Mrs. Branch?
Yes.
Mr. Petruno?
Yes.
Ms. Piernick?
Yes.
Mrs. Rosado?
Yes.
Mrs. Shrem?
Yes.
And Dr. Heller?
Yes. Jen, can you please read personnel matters?
Yes, the superintendent of schools submits the following resolutions for approval. 1, retirements. 2, resignation. 3, employment, instructional assistant. 4, employment and school aide. 5, employment bus driver. 6, employment, additional teaching time. 7, amended salary, non-certificated staff. 8, suspension with pay. 9, curriculum, station facilitators for Power Program Parent Academy. 10, curriculum, amendment, Power Coach. 11, curriculum, amendment, Title I building facilitators. 12, curriculum, amendment, Power Coaches. 13, curriculum, amendment, recording and data coordinators. 14, stipend, mentor teachers. 15, amended stipend, mentor teacher. 16, student observation. 17, student practicum. 18, substitute teachers. 19, substitute school nurse. 20, substitute secretary. 21, paid medical disability leaves. 22, unpaid leaves of absence. 23, amended resolution leave dates. Please hold, A, B, C, D, E, F. I so move.
Do I have a second?
second.
Jill, I got Jill. Jill, any discussion, please?
Randy?
I hear someone.
It's Tricia.
Oh, hey.
Sorry.
It's okay.
I just realized back in financial, we didn't acknowledge the donation, number 13.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Can you read it?
Yeah, it says, be it resolved that the Marlboro Township Board of Education hereby acknowledges the donation of $5,800 to the Marlboro Middle School from the Marlboro Middle School PTO to be used towards the purchase of 10 picnic tables, umbrellas, and stands, which that's an amazing donation. I wanted to make sure we didn't
Yeah, no,
forget
thank you
to
very
say
much.
something. Thank you. Thank you, PTO. Amazing work.
No, I appreciate that. I appreciate the donation. We really do appreciate it. Any donation is welcomed in this community. We've always welcomed that, and thank you so much, Trish, for pointing that out.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Okay. Jen, you did that. You did that. Mr. Balone, do you have, or do you want to say something?
No, wait, we have to vote.
Oh, we didn't vote? Oh, okay. Well, we'll vote. Vin, roll call, please.
Sure. So roll call vote for personnel. Mrs. Amster?
Yes.
Mrs. Branch?
Yes.
Mr. Petruno?
Yes.
Ms. Piernick?
Yes.
Mrs. Rosato?
Yes.
Mrs. Shrem?
Yes.
Mrs. Strafasi?
I abstain on number 14, yes on everything else.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Salachi?
Yes.
And Dr. Heller?
Yes. Mr. Balone, I got ahead of myself, but do you have any letters to read?
I do. We have one retirement on the agenda for Nancy Savage. Nancy Savage has served as a teacher of Spanish for 18 years at Marlboro Middle School. As she begins her retirement, we applaud her many years of dedication to our students and to our community. She continues to be an advocate for learning Spanish as a second language and the appreciation for another culture. She encourages students to learn the language and to continue their study of the language in high school. Nancy has served as our district as a mentor for new teachers, has served on many curriculum committees, has added her knowledge and expertise to the development of new curriculum guides, and participated in the selection process of new textbooks. She's always willing to help, regardless of the need. Most importantly, Nancy is a true professional who enjoys her role as a teacher educator. She always has a smile to share, always portrays positivity, professionalism, and through her guidance and instruction can be counted on to support Marlboro students, faculty, and community. Nancy's looking forward to enjoying retirement with her husband and son.
Okay, thank you so much for that. We're going to move forward. Jill, can you please read Policy Development and Community Relations?
The superintendent of schools submits the following resolutions for approval. Should this be one instead of two?
Yeah.
Okay.
One. Oh, you know what? It actually shouldn't be, isn't it, in the beginning?
Did I skip something?
I think the beginning was number one.
We had one with the personnel
Yeah.
matters.
What did I do wrong?
Change of meeting date.
You didn't do anything wrong. At the very beginning, policy development was number one for change of meeting date, so it starts at number two now.
Okay, so I'm good saying two?
Yeah,
All right.
you're good to go.
Sounds good.
You're good.
2, amended 22-23 school year calendar. 3, first readings. I so move.
Do I have a second? Kathleen? That's her, Kathleen. Any discussion?
Is this when we discuss the policies?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I just had some questions.
Go right ahead.
Okay. I'm sorry. Policy 167, public participation in board meetings. So I had a question about the new number 5. It says, no participant may speak more than once during each public participation session. I just need a clarification on that. So if I spoke at the first public session does that mean and then somebody responds to me, I'm not allowed to get up anymore during that first public comment? Is that what that means? Yes? Okay. And then the other thing is number 7. All statements shall be directed to the presiding officer. No participant may address or question board members individually. Would we be able to add somewhere, like board members may respond immediately at the end of that comment? Sometimes if we wait all the way to the end, someone might leave, and then that board member doesn't have the right to speak to that person?
Yeah, we do it at the end of the public participation. I give everyone that opportunity. Sorry about that. I do give that flexibility at the end when I allow every public member, every board member to make a comment.
So we can't respond, like, if someone speaks, they're speaking directly about us or alluding to us, we're not allowed to speak and
No, let me make it very clear. As board president, and I've made this very clear to many board members, if something is directed to you specifically, I have allowed, as we did last week, if you remember, I allow absolutely for you to comment. No ifs, ands, or buts. So, yes.
If I can, just make a how does this work? Like, can I make a recommendation about this number? You want to make an amendment? Yeah. So number 7, all statements shall be directed to the presiding officer. No participant may address or question board members individually. Could you add to that board member, if a board member is referred to or alluded to in the comment, that the board member may immediately at the end of the comment, after directed by the president, respond to the commenter, when referred to, or, however you got to word it, but when they're referred to.
So, I'm sorry, with the mic. So you would like it in writing?
Absolutely.
That's what I'm asking, okay. Is that possible?
Mr. Paterno, I think it sounds like you're making a motion to amend the policy to include language that says if a member is discussed in comments, in the community comments, I'm sorry, the board member may immediately respond at the conclusion of the comment. Is that about capture what you're looking for?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Yeah. The only reason I think, one of the things, I'll just weigh in very quickly, and certainly if that's seconded, we can have a discussion. I think the reason that we have to give some serious thought to that is we don't want to turn it into a debate back and forth. That's why I always recommend to my school board clients, like we did tonight, we close the public participation and then you respond. That way, if you respond, the person gets back up and it ends up turning into a debate. Up to you guys how you want to handle it. That's the only reason I suggest we close it and then respond.
Yeah, I thank you for your input. I appreciate it. Actually, the way that had come to be was, the last couple meetings, things had gotten a little heated in public comment, and there was some issues where board members were either referred to, if not by name, alluded to, and by the time public comment section came to an end, and the people were gone, and it's not really so much, I'm not saying we need to open it up to a back and forth, but just to clear any misinformation, because there was some issues where there was some misinformation shared in the comment and it couldn't be addressed, by the time it was going to be addressed at the end of public comment, the commenter had already left the meeting.
Understood. Yeah, this is a first reading, so we can certainly entertain that amendment. So Mr. Paterno made a motion to amend the policy to include the language that I just read. That would require a second.
I second.
Okay, so discussion, this is just on the amendment now, Dr. Heller.
So
discussion of the amendment that he is proposing that allows a board member to immediately respond if a comment is directed specifically to a board member.
Okay, anybody
Discussion.
Discussion, sorry. Susie?
I was just going to say that I think if one of us wants to respond, why not? If it's about, if it's something personal and they want to respond in the moment, I understand what Christina's saying. Like, it just might be more relevant to respond in the moment. So I personally don't have a problem with that.
Thank you.
Trish, I'm sorry.
Sure. I remember back when we would have comments and then people would, and then, you know, from the board, there would be an immediate response, and in a way I liked that, but after these last few meetings, it just, I think it does create that back and forth and contention. I wasn't immediately a big fan of the idea of letting everybody make comments and us not saying anything, because in the moment you want to respond, because some of the things that are alleged or things that are said to you are just so awful. Your reaction as a human being is to say, wait a minute. Like another parent said today, like, well, you know, passionate parents aren't bad people. Well, that to me was a comment that, like, we think that they're bad. And I wanted in that moment to be like, no, I love passion. I'm a passionate person. And I think parents that are passionate are fabulous. But there is a way to express your passion, and there are ways to not express your passion. So, but if I had done that in that moment, I think it would have added to the heatedness of that comment. So as much as I agree on a human level, when things are lobbed at you, you want to respond. I think the reason why I would say no to that amendment is because I think what happened today was a good example of how if you don't respond in the moment, and if that person can't give you if they can just make a comment and then leave, I don't know, I wouldn't even bother. I mean, it's just because it's just meant to incite, it's meant to say something, and then to just create, I think, negative commentary. So as much as I, as a human, want to be like, yes, I want to respond in that moment and address it, I think just even this meeting, just as we just witnessed, I think it's better to not in that moment and then address it later. I don't know, that's how I feel.
But I understand what you're saying, but like at the last meeting we had, and I don't know who the woman was, but there was a woman who said something that moved you, and you responded to her in basically saying you understood.
But I responded after. I responded at the end.
Okay, I'm just saying, sometimes you feel like you need to.
I just want to say that, you know, we're responding to the past couple meetings. Hopefully that won't
I
ever
don't
be.
think that's the
And
exception.
we're respectful people, you know, to one another at least. And the rule still exists that there's no back and forth. So as long as we just, you know, make sure that there's no back and forth, but we have the right to respond. We should have that right to respond.
Well, Susie, I'm not
Trish,
saying not to
I understand
respond.
what you're saying. No, I get that. Okay. And I understand what you're saying because it can instigate it. But I think we're all pretty level-headed that if we're heated, just, you know, use your judgment.
Right.
So,
Thank you, Susan.
so I'm clear. So we're saying, like, you would respond, like, if a parent comes up and says X, you're going to wait till their 3 minutes
comment
are up,
is done.
and then you make your comment, but they're not going to do any back and forth. They're going to go and, you know,
Well,
they'll
they
go and they'll
shouldn't.
sit, and then you can address them. That's what you're asking to
So,
do?
yeah,
But-
the purpose is not to create a back and forth. It was
Right.
more, and just to clarify with what Tricia was saying, like, for instance, that comment, I see what you're saying, but it would be more if the comment was, well, you know, directed directly
Tricia,
at
you
right.
are
So if
okay, I
you-
see what
you
you're
see what I'm saying? So,
Mhm.
and I'm not saying to open up the floor to a back and forth, merely, you know, just to get on record if there was any misinformation that it could be corrected, because a lot of times, you know, listen, we're in the social media age. People are getting information from social media coming in, you know, there's a public comment, sometimes information is incorrect. So when that happens, rather than wait till the end when the person's no longer here, just, you know, not a 3-minute comment, just, you know, a quick response, just clarifying.
So I just want to add, so whatever I've been doing, you just want it in writing, that's all.
Correct.
Right? Because that's all you're
Yeah,
asking.
I mean, yeah. I mean,
Respectfully, what I've been doing, and you just wanted it in
Yes.
writing. Okay.
So just to make sure, the amendment will clearly state that we can only respond if we are alluded to by
Or
name
spoken to directly.
Correct. So, is that it? That's what we're gonna talk about.
be direct comment.
So
That's what I want to understand.
Here's what I wrote, and it's your motion, Mr. Paterno, so feel free to tweak it as you see fit. But I wrote, if a board member is discussed in community comments specifically by name, the board member may immediately respond to the comment at the close of the comment.
You have to add or alluded to.
Alluded to, okay, it's up to you, but to me,
Yeah.
that's a little more gray.
Well, for example, when a gentleman was referring to the one board member who has a child in private school, that was me. We knew that. but I was being alluded to.
Further discussion, please? So how do we go about doing this? We're gonna
Roll call.
Okay, roll call.
This is
Vinnie?
just on the amendment now.
Just on the amendment.
Can you read the amendment again? Sorry.
Yes, please.
Please.
Yeah, sure. If a board member is discussed in community comments by name or alluded to, the board member may immediately respond at the conclusion of that community member's comment.
I think as long as it's clear that, I know you have the word may in there, but
It
as
says
long as
may.
it's clear, like, if they wish to, like, it's
They don't
just
have to.
allowing
They don't
us
have
an
to. It says may.
option.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so what, so how would, just so I understand, since you put the motion, so if, and so how would you,
This is the
just
first read,
for
so I was thinking-
logistic purposes, someone alluded to yourself or someone else here, how would you just out loud just say something, or you would?
No, by all means, you can direct it. you
That's
know.
what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Okay, so could we put something in there that says
Board
that?
president?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, Randy, you're the president.
No,
You're
I
directing the
understand,
meeting.
but if you want,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah,
appreciate
I
it.
think,
You're
yeah.
running the meeting, so
Yeah,
it
yeah.
should be
So,
you.
Okay, I
upon
just
the
want to make
complete-
sure that,
Yeah, like upon the completion of their comment, if someone is referred to or alluded to, you know,
Right.
then you can acknowledge that person
Right.
so that they can just.
right, so just to
clear any
piggyback on
misinformation.
what Tricia was saying, I don't want it to get the back and forth, and I just want it to be civil.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the best way to be it civil is that the president, that you would.
100%.
Okay, that's, I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page.
Why don't we add, again, up to you, but the board president will ask the member if he or she wishes to respond at that time.
Okay.
That'll be at the end.
Do you understand?
Yep.
You guys understand? Okay, any
I'm sorry,
questions?
just can you read it? Can you read the thing again?
The entire thing?
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you. Yes.
Sure. If a board member is discussed or alluded to in comments by a member of the community, the board member may immediately respond. The board president will specifically ask the member if he or she wishes to respond at that time.
Sounds good.
Okay, that works. Okay, so could we have roll call for that, please?
Well, do we have to second it?
Oh, do we have to second?
Yeah, I think it already
I
was.
second,
Yeah,
I seconded it.
Thank you.
This is just for that amendment that we're
Yes.
voting?
Just
Okay.
for the amendment.
Do I go first?
I don't, no, it's
I'll
up
roll
to
call.
Vin. Vin, roll call, please.
So this is roll call vote for an amendment to policy 0167, public participation in board meetings.
Correct, thank you.
Mrs. Shrem?
Yes.
Mrs. Salachi?
Yes.
Mrs. Strafasi?
Yes.
Mrs. Amster?
Yes.
Mrs. Branch?
Yes.
Ms. Piernick?
Yes.
Mrs. Rosado?
Yes.
Mr. Petruno?
Yes.
And Dr. Heller?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes.
Good. Okay. Continuing with, anybody have any other questions with regards to policy development and community relations?
Randy, I do.
Yes, Christina.
Just policy 155, board committees. I just wanted to motion to amend on the second page where it says, the chairperson works closely with the lead administrator. The chairperson, in conjunction with the lead administrator, sets the date, time, and place of the meetings. The lead administrator prepares the agenda. I just wanted to add in the lead administrator, comma, along with the chairperson, comma, prepares the agenda for the committee. Just to add in that phrase, since it's the administrator and chair.
Can I piggyback on that too, just so everybody knows? I also had that section highlighted.
Did you?
And I spoke with Mark, because I had some questions about that. So, and I asked Mark if we could, repeat the conversation here so that everybody knows. Because when I looked at this, my only concern was the when Mark did the presentation for us, it was clear that there should be a clear demarcation between administration and Board of Ed where the board can administer and the board sets policy and you're not supposed to overlap. So I just wanted to make sure that not just, I'm not saying this as, even as us as individuals, but just our offices, like, because we may all not be here 5 years from now. So when the next, but this policy may still be here. So for us, and, you know, hopefully you win the lottery and you're sitting in Aruba, you know, next month. So, you know, you don't have to worry about it, but, you know, like the superintendent.
Smiling right now, yeah.
You know, I want to make sure that the superintendent's role is protected and not left vulnerable and that our roles are not vulnerable, because I wanted to make sure that this was clear. So I had a great conversation with Mark, and he said,
Yeah, so Jill's question specifically related to the, correct me if I'm wrong, to the policy committee in particular, because
Yes.
the policy is a primary function of the Board of Education. As you're correct from my
Yes.
ethics presentation, is one of the main roles of the board is to set policy. So Jill's question was, for that particular committee, should the chair of the policy committee really be setting the agenda? My thought.
no, that should the administrator be setting the agenda for the chair?
Yeah, or
Right.
should it come from the chair of the committee itself?
Exactly,
Right.
right. the
Yep,
administrator,
exactly. So my thought was, you know, the administration is really in the weeds. So you're right, the board sets the policies, which are the rules and regulations that guide the district, but it's really the administration that is kind of on the front lines in terms of implementation of policy. I thought it made sense that the lead administrator, who's really responsible for carrying out and might see the pros and cons and issues with various policies, would be the one that would take a first pass at it. The way the policy is written is that it then gets circulated to the committee for input, and then it also continues on to say that nothing precludes a member from raising a topic at a meeting that is not on the agenda. So I don't think this is meant to be unilateral in any way in terms of the administration setting the agenda or setting the policy. It's really supposed to be a collaborative process. If I'm not certainly objecting to any amendments that you folks feel are important, but that was my rationale. I didn't think it was contrary to the ethics, really, by having an administrator at least take the first pass at the agenda, since, I'm sorry, not at the, at the agenda for the policy committee, since they're the ones who are really responsible for carrying it out.
So my question, just to follow up with Jill, is when you spoke to Mark and you got the response, were you in a better position with regards to the conversation?
I do believe that Mark is our board attorney, and he represents, you know, the interests of the board. So if he's saying it's okay, then I didn't go to law school. He says it's okay, it's okay. You know? But Mark was very, you know, he boosted my ego and said, you know, that was a really great question. And he, you know, when he looked at it, he was like, I could totally see why you would think that based on my presentation. So, but I'm going to defer to the attorney on this one.
Okay, and I just, since we're talking about administration and you mentioned Dr. Hibbs, I'll allow him to weigh in on this.
Yeah, I think it's totally fine to have a collaborative effort in setting the agenda. Sure.
I just wanted to make sure everybody's role is protected. I'm
that's-
trying to look out for the board and the superintendent, because I don't want anyone to, you know, get shots on
We
social
never had,
media.
we always had the opportunity for anyone to add anything to any agenda that we've ever had. So all this is really doing is memorializing that concept.
Right, and that's all I was saying. It was a collaboration, so the collaboration should be represented in the verbiage of the policy, that's all.
So can you just read the amendment one more time?
It was the exact sentence,
Yeah.
just the lead administrator along with the chairperson. That was the only thing that was added at that first part. Prepares the agenda for the committee and provides it to the committee for input. And then in that same paragraph, it says it again, the lead administrator conducts the committee member meetings and guides the committee through the agenda items. I was just adding that phrase again, along with the chairperson.
You need a second.
A second.
Do I have a second on that amendment? You want to flip
Kathleen
for
can
it?
have it.
Kathleen, go.
Thank you.
Kathleen is second, Vin. Any further discussion with that? So Mark's going to read it out loud so everybody's on the same page.
Read what she said out loud again?
No, I could, well, yeah, just.
You want me to read it?
Yeah,
Okay.
please, just do it.
The lead administrator, along with the chairperson, prepares the agenda for the committee and provides it to the committee for input. Then, in that same paragraph, it says the lead administrator, along with the chairperson, conducts the committee meetings and guides the committee through the agenda items.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
So we're going to go up for roll for this, please, for this amendment, please.
Sure, so this is roll call vote for amendment to policy 0155, board committees. Mrs. Branch?
Yes.
Mr. Petruno?
Yes.
Ms. Piernick?
Yes.
Mrs. Shrem?
Yes.
Mrs. Salachi?
Yes.
Mrs. Trafasi?
Yes.
Mrs. Amster?
Yes.
Mrs. Rosado?
Yes.
And Dr. Heller?
Yes. Any further questions? For this policy development and community relations, specifically?
Specifically for this?
For this. Anybody have questions specifically to this? If not, any discussions? No? Okay, I don't see none. Vin, roll call, please.
And this is on the policies as amended.
Yes.
Yep, so this is all of the policies as amended. Mrs. Branch?
Yes.
Mr. Petruno?
I'm sorry, this is on all four?
Yep, including the amendments.
All four are amended.
Okay. I'm sorry, I thought we were going to be doing them one at a time. I'm going to say for 0143,
Well, can we go back and discuss?
Yeah,
Or no?
Can I make a suggestion? Why don't we vote on the ones that you're comfortable voting on, and then we can go back to the other two? Is that okay? How many policies were you thinking were not voting? Did you have a concern about a particular policy besides the ones we talked about?
I was voting yes for policy 0, the board president one, the board
officers?
Board officers
Yeah.
was a yes, the other 3 were no.
Okay.
Ben, you got that?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so 0152 was a yes, and the other 3 were no. Okay, Ms. Piernick?
I'm sorry, can you?
He's asking for your vote on the.
This
Yeah,
is roll.
but I thought we amended 2 of them, so.
We did.
So we're just voting, we're voting on all 4, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Yes.
Mrs. Rosado?
Yes to all, no to 167.
Mrs. Shrem?
Yes.
Mrs. Salachi?
Yes.
Okay, Mrs. Amster?
Yes to all, no to 167.
Mrs. Trafasi?
Yes.
And Dr. Heller?
Yes. We're going to move forward to organization delegates. Kathleen or Jill, anything from Freehold Regional High School District?
Yes. Their last meeting was February 10th. They are going to allow parent choice for masking when the governor's order expires. They also implemented an SAT prep program with over 12 hours of free instruction to over 300 students. It was comparative to if you took an 18-hour course with like Princeton Review, that would cost $1,000. So they did this and they had over 300 participants. That's great. And the next meeting is scheduled for March 10th at 7 p.m.
Thank you. Do you know when that's going to be for the SAT?
It happened already.
Oh, it happened already?
Yes, it happened already. They did it.
Are they going to do it?
announced it when they were
Yes,
going to have
they
it.
did it.
and
It was
she's
very
giving the
successful.
post results.
Yeah, they did. They
Oh.
said it was a great success.
Wow, fantastic.
that's really
Are
good
they
to
going to do
hear.
it again, do you know? Did they mention-
I'm not aware of it. I mean,
Okay.
I'm assuming because SAT happens, every
Yeah,
3 months.
The
I'm
May
assuming
one's
maybe
already
maybe-
coming up, yeah.
but maybe next year this time they'll do it. I could reach out and ask.
Wow, that's awesome. Thank you. Christina or Aldo, anything on Marlboro Township Alliance?
So I reached out to Ms. Mazza, Donna Mazza, introduced myself. She said there was a little bit of a reorganization. She has nothing to report as of right now, but she'll keep me in the loop if there's any events upcoming.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Jen or Jill, anything on the Monmouth County School Board Association?
That would be Jen.
Yeah,
either
the
one.
meeting was on February 7th,
Mhm.
and it was just a regular meeting.
Awesome. Trish or Jess, anything from the municipal government?
I have something. Basically, they have approved the resumption of the brush collection by zone. So please do not place your brush in the street. Do not place curbside more than 1 week before your scheduled pickup date. If you're not sure of your scheduled pickup date, then dates for each zone will be sent via email and posted on the website and social media this coming week. Also, because of these crazy temperatures, cold, hot, basically that causes expansion and contraction of our asphalt, which brings an early start to the pothole season. Yay! The township has an online pothole portal permanently posted on the website homepage and allows the residents to enter the complaint 24/7 directly into the township tracking system, which allows for a more efficient response, hopefully. Monmouth County Board of Elections is seeking poll workers. So if you do want to be a poll worker, the number is 732-431-7150, extension 7150. And lastly, because COVID is on the decline, thankfully, the Marlboro COVID testing truck has been closed. But if you do need a test, locations can be found on the county and state websites and the Monmouth County Health Department free app. And that's from the town.
No, thank you very much. Trish and Jess, oh no, we already did that. Aldo and Kathleen, anything from NJSBA?
I'm Freehold Regional, so I don't.
Oh, okay.
Well, you're.
Oh, we're together?
I always
Okay.
bring in the alternatives as well.
Oh, okay.
Respectfully.
Got it.
Yeah, nothing to report from the NJSBA.
Okay, and Susie or Trish, anything from PTO, PTA scope?
That's me for scope.
Who do I say?
And me and Trish. I'm PTA, PTO.
Yeah,
Yeah, we did have a meeting. We had a good discussion.
Yep.
Do you want to step in? Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, so we talked a little bit about COVID protocols, talked a little bit about business that all the PTAs can do together. We talked a little bit about the Thanksgiving collections. So that's really what it was all about, and we'll have another one scheduled in about a month.
Okay, beautiful.
Wait, for scope, they just got a speaker for April. Timothy Rohr will be speaking to the district, and I believe that his book was purchased for every single building in the district as well. And for PTO, as far as David Abbott, they had a ton of activities. February's pillar of character was kindness.
Oh yeah, we're gonna go there.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're good. We'll be back to that. Jen or Susie, anything from Marlboro Educational Foundation?
Yes. Our meeting was on February 16th, and we had a very successful virtual paint night led by an art teacher. A great time was had by all, and the kids painted beautiful snowy penguins. It was really cute. We're now discussing an adult virtual cooking night, which we've done in the past, and it was a lot of fun. And in-person events like a medium night, which we did, which was awesome, mahjong nights, which is also a lot of fun, and hopefully our famous Wizards game. We're hoping to have that back.
Oh, fun.
That's
Let's
awesome.
hope.
That's
We're trying,
awesome.
we're trying.
That's awesome. So Jess or Christina on CPAG?
Sorry, I did scope because that's the new PTO group.
Okay. Do you have anything on CPAG?
CPAG has a meeting on February 24th.
Okay. So we'll have that for next time. So school liaisons, Aldo, anything on Asher Holmes?
Yeah, I was invited by Miss Silmy and Miss Martiak from Miss Silmy, the principal, and Miss Martiak, I think is the PTA president at Asher, to attend their meeting on February 10th. It was, there was nothing major to report back, but it was, a good meeting, and they have a lot of events that they're doing and fundraisers for the kids, and they're doing an amazing job. And it's really nice to see.
Thank you. Jess, anything on Abbott? I know you were talking about
Shout out to Christy Darcy and Dana Berger for doing an amazing job. They have so many activities. So they went along with February's Pillar of Character, which was kindness. They had Pink Day. They had a dance-a-thon for the whole school. You can send a thank you note to a teacher who's made an impact on your child's life, and then the staff member gets a certificate.
They raised money by selling puppets for Valentine's Day. Today was Ties and Tutu Day. And then parents donated pantry items to Freehold Open Door Food Pantry. There was a huge celebration for the 100th day of school. The kids dressed up as old men and women. There are 2 fundraisers going on, Gertrude Hawk and the Kids Heart Challenge. Coming up later this week is the Warm and Fuzzy Day. And then next month is Read Across America, with week-long celebrations of Dr. Seuss and a week of fun activities.
Wow, they are busy over there. That's awesome. Jen, anything from Defino?
Yes, so I spoke with Dr. Stradek, and we are going to be in touch with all the PTO and PTA. I've reached out to the presidents, and they will be letting me know when their meetings are virtually.
Very nice. Jill, anything on Dugan?
Just a lot of, they've been doing great emails. Let us stack the fridge. We are getting everything together for the 5th grade celebration. It's kind of crazy that it's coming up so quick. But, you know, boosters, yearbook, 5th grade celebration, the whole, you know, it's going to be here before we know it.
Wow.
So.
That is fantastic. Susie, anything from Marlboro Elementary?
You know, it's really similar. We had our pizza fundraiser for Valentine's Day, heart-shaped pizzas. That was a success. Last week we had our book fair with our Read Across America night evening, and our theme was for the love of reading, since it was the week of Valentine's Day. Last week we had our 100th day celebration. Today we also had Ties and Tutus. We have the yearbook fundraising going on with the boosters for teachers and for students. 5th grade celebration, like, you know, action's happening, and it's really great to see, and the kids are, you know, starting to get involved again, and parents are, and it's just really great.
That's so positive. I love it.
Yeah.
Trish, anything from Marlboro Memorial?
I know, here, right? They had the Choose Kind Spirit Week, so things like wear pink to take a stand against bullying, and then they also had daily challenges with each thing. That wear pink was make sure you say hi to at least 10 people as you pass in the halls. So this whole week, this week has been focused on that. Also today being 2/22/22, they celebrated everything too, like twins dressing alike, wearing 2 sounded inspired clothing. I think someone else said ties and tutus. So that theme is across all the schools, which is really fun.
That's cool. Kathleen, anything from Marlboro Middle School?
Yeah, they have 2 upcoming meetings, the last 2 of the year, March 15th at 9:45, and the last one will be May 10th at 9:45. Right now, they look like to be in person, but that's subject to change or not change based on numbers. Hopefully, they'll finally be in person. We will see. Right now, they're currently running a St. Patrick's Day raffle through March 16th, benefiting 8th grade activities. And any information that you need, they have a wonderful website, marlboromiddle.ptoboard.com, for any information you need.
Beautiful. Can you say that again, just in case?
Yep, marlboromiddle.ptoboard.com.
Thank you so much.
Can I ask a question real quick? What's going on with the dance and everything with the 8th graders this year?
There's nothing to report yet. I'd probably be more in the loop if I had an 8th grader, but I don't. Next year I will.
No, I'm just because my daughter missed out, so I'm like rooting for them to have it, you know?
As soon as I hear anything, I will report back.
Yeah, no, I'm curious. Thank you.
That's all. Christina, anything from Artsville?
I connected with Ms. Green via email. She invited me to tour the school. We're trying to find a date that might work for both of us, and she said she'll let me know about an upcoming PTO meeting. We're not sure if it's going to be in person or Zoom, but that's all I have to report.
Thank you so much for everyone. It really shows that there's a lot going on in Marlboro through our individual schools. I'm glad that we're able to do this, that you guys are able to connect with the building principals, the PTO, PTA people. This is awesome. It's all positive, so I appreciate that. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to go, anyone have old business? I see none. Anyone have new business? I see none. Yeah. Yes?
So for the new business, my comment, well, not comment, essentially, when I saw this is about the policy revisions, and being new on the board, I'm trying to I'm figuring things out as I go, but I knew the main role, being on the board is that the board is a policy-making entity, right? And I was kind of surprised when I saw the policy revisions come for a first read at the last meeting. Primarily, you know, now I know I'm new to this, but, you know, it just seemed like I thought that there would be some kind of discussion or something before policy revisions came up for a first read. Only because it seems like that's the main focus of what we do on the board. So I was surprised to see, you know, that like, I thought it would have been a group discussion before it was reverted to a committee. So I you know, it kind of caught me off guard. Essentially what I was looking at and what I was trying to do is figure out, you know, there's 3 people on the policy committee, right? And, you know, those 3 people are basically making policy, you know, suggested policy revisions and bringing them to the board, and we're discussing them, right? And I think it probably would have avoided what happened, you know, with having to table it and, you know, relook at it. There were some questions that I asked in my head, and, you know, when I saw the revisions come through the first time I was reading them, and there's like a, you know, in my mind, as I'm reading the revisions, I'm thinking to myself, well, you know, are these changes in the best interests of the community and the students? And I feel like, you know, I'm not on the policy committee, and you know, I know you guys probably put in a lot of hard work on that, so, you know, I'm sorry that it got tabled and had to come back and all that. But essentially, I was surprised, you know, it caught me off guard because we're a policy-making board, yet there's 3 people in the policy committee who are making the policy revisions for us to then review. I figured it would be better, you know, my suggestion was that I'd like to make a motion that at the beginning of each calendar year, a workshop meeting be scheduled with the primary purpose of discussing any policy revisions needed, while having the board as a whole present to provide their input. The topics discussed at the meeting could serve as a precursor to guide the policy committee on items that would be worked on in the upcoming year. This meeting, I was hoping, you know, would be open to the public, not that they can interact in the roundtable discussion, but so they can observe it and see what, you know, the thought process was behind any potential revisions. And then perhaps open it up to a, you know, a public comment or question section at the end to get the public's input on anything that was discussed. You know, that being said, if at any point, you know, and then obviously the policy committee would be able to, you know, take those items and anything else that they felt would need, you know, needed to be worked on and do what they have to, and then come back, you know, with revisions for a first read. And then again, if there was anything throughout the course of the year, like, you know, additional policy revisions that, you know, the board felt that needed to be looked into, then, you know, perhaps another workshop meeting could be scheduled, like on an as-needed basis. I know that everybody puts a lot of hours in here, you know, and I know it's a volunteer. It's just, you know, a volunteer position. My only concern was, you know, there's 9 of us on the board, and we're really here to, you know, we're here to represent the community, and I feel like it would be doing the community a better service if we were able to have that discussion in a workshop setting with the community watching and hearing our thoughts and our thought processes going into the policy revisions. Because even myself, when I saw them, I was like, why are we doing this change? You know, why? And like, I didn't even, you know, I didn't know that what had transpired to make the policy revisions, you know, necessary. So I know this is kind of out of left field, but you know, I'd like to make that motion to see if it was possible to perhaps start the year off with a workshop after reorg, start the year off with a workshop meeting, you know, in specifically at looking at policy revisions that needed to be looked at, so that we could get, you know, the input of the board as a whole, rather than 3 members, you know, who then would bring it to the board, and then, you know, like what we saw happen last week, you know, I think it would basically avoid that, you know.
So let me just, and I appreciate what you have to say, but the point of a committee, and Mark, you can chime in at any time, is, and this was created way before any of us. Okay, this is in fact piggybacks on what I just said previously in my comments about old board members who came and came to discuss and draw their attention to the policies that were going to come for first read. They created, what we have a committee, and the committee is made up of, there's 6 different committees, I believe. Offhand, I can't remember.
Right.
And the purpose is that there's 2 directions. There's a full board that makes decisions as a full board, or there's committee. And so the reason for the committee is to make sure that anything that needs to be tweaked or worked upon is done within that committee, and then it's brought to the board just like now, and then everybody discusses as a whole. So,
Right, so, and I don't, are you done, or?
well, I was going to ask Mark if he wanted to interject.
You know, you're correct. The purpose of the committee is to get into the weeds on these issues. I think Mr. Paterno's point is that we wanted to give the full board opportunity to weigh in on particular policies or suggest other policies as well. Correct?
Yeah, essentially my concern is our primary role sitting here, 9 board members, is a policy-making entity, right? That's our primary role. It just seems like having, and I'm not saying abolish the policy committee by no means, but what I'm saying is if our primary role is to be a policy-making entity, we're with one swipe, making a committee that only has 3 of the 9 people, brainstorming on those. And not only that, but it's also done, in a private committee meeting. So it leaves a lot of questions. Like even myself, I'm a board member, but I'm also a resident. And even when I saw the agenda, I'm like, why is this change, why is this on the agenda? Why is this so important? Why is this so important? What was the thought process that got us to this revision? And there was some that I couldn't understand, and likewise, I guess the community had the same concern because it was, they spoke out and it was tabled. But there should always be, in my opinion, there should always be like that one litmus test when doing anything to a policy. Is this change or addition or removal in the best interests of the community and the students? And if it can't pass that test, it shouldn't even come up for a first read. Now, that being said, there's 9 of us on the board, 3 of us on the policy committee. I think instead of having the 3 people come up with policy revisions and bring it to the 9, we should do it the other way and do 9 people at a roundtable discussion, and then afterwards, the policy committee can run with it and make the revisions necessary and bring it back for a first read.
Can I ask a question based on what Aldo is saying? Because I've been on and off the policy committee throughout my couple years here on the board. We meet when Strauss Esme suggests a change in a policy, that can happen at any time during the year. So to have it at the start of the calendar year, in theory, sounds great. But are you suggesting then if a new policy gets changed by Strauss Esme and we have to revisit that policy, we should have another workshop meeting with all 9 of us?
Yeah,
to discuss it?
100%.
So
I mean,
every time,
Strauss Esme is not a taxpayer. They shouldn't have.
right, but aren't they the ones that guide us in terms of our policies?
Yeah, they do. They're your policy-making company. They really, what they do is put forth mandated, really they're not discretionary. You do have some language discretion, but generally they're mandated policies. So during the course of the year, you're correct, Ms. Shrem, Strauss Esme will propose policies for adoption.
How many times a year would you say that happens?
Is that monthly,
it changes.
Mr. Ballone, or
It
Dr.
changes
Hibbs?
I
on,
can handle it. So they come out, it could be monthly, it could be every other month, it could be every 3 months.
Right.
The concept of having one at the beginning of the year or just picking anything arbitrarily, honestly, wouldn't make sense because we have alerts come in. So, picking an arbitrary date.
Yeah.
Did they recommend these policy revisions?
Well, as discussed, and I mentioned this during my speech last week, and I explained the rationale behind what happened. Both me and Trish, based off of the meeting that happened in January, we decided to ask Mark, with his advice, to look at policies that made things more efficient and effective. And it was because of us is the reason that these policies were brought up. Instead, and Trish, you could certainly chime in because you were part of that conversation.
Yeah, no, I mean, basically, board members spoke out after January 18th meeting and just made certain comments, and it resonated with me. So my feeling after these random comments wasn't like you came to me and said, I need that changed, but I'm trying to listen and respond to concerns that I've been hearing from board members. So Randy and I had a conversation. Again, we're new and we're trying to be proactive, right? We're trying to be positive and proactive in the way that we address things. And so hearing from these little comments back and forth, that was like, listen, we want to be efficient, right? We want to be responsive. And so we should look at the policies. And that's really how this came up.
Right, but you see, that's kind of my concern. Like so that's how it played out. But to myself, who's not on the policy committee, and to the other,
but it wasn't brought by the policy committee. That was driven. That was, I think, a unique situation because generally.
Well, what happened is we asked Mark to look at the policies.
Right.
Let me just, I'll be able to answer your question because then we asked Mark to look at it. And then from there, we provided it to the policy committee, but we were very transparent with regards to the board. So they get their information, not the day of, not the 2 days before, not 3 days before, but way in advance. So I understand the position that you're asking. You know, I'm trying to really try to understand.
Let me just clarify for you. So I'm not trying, I don't mean, and if that's the way it came out, I apologize. I'm not trying to say that you guys were not transparent. I'm trying to offer a suggestion because I feel like as a board, we should always be trending to be more transparent. I feel like transparency is, I mean, it's huge. First of all, it's gonna build trust between the board and the community, between the administration and the community, between the administration and the board. You know, transparency is always a good thing. And, you know, I just feel that if we, and I said, you know, in January, because that's when, you know, this is my third meeting and it came up in January. But if it wasn't, you know, it doesn't, forget about January. When the need arises, that policies need to be revised and looked at, you know, 3 times a year, 4 times a year, whatever it is. Yeah, it may take a little more work on our part and we're gonna have to come to a workshop meeting, but you know what? If I was sitting on that side and I was watching, I would wanna see that happen. I would wanna be able to watch the roundtable discussion and hear everyone's thoughts on why policies were being changed and basically hear the thought process. Why now? Why is this so important? Why do we need to change this? Like who's, you know, what's the driver behind this?
So just to clarify a couple things. So I guess what you're suggesting is that the board operate really as a committee of the whole for your policy committee rather than by a committee structure.
So yeah, essentially what I was proposing is that the policy changes happen in a workshop setting, a workshop meeting that the board, you know, we'll come to a workshop meeting, have a roundtable discussion that the public can watch, not participate. They'll watch us discuss the policy revisions that, you know, anyone feels need to happen. Then at the end, if they would like to put, you know, a public comment or question, so that if they have any concerns or questions, which could also be very valuable to us in, you know, learning about what we're about to revise. I mean, policy is huge. Policy is what we're all about, and policy is what drives the entire board in the district, for that matter. You know, to really limit it to 3 people to make the revisions and bring to the board, like you saw what happened last month. Like there was no, you know, we didn't even, that would have been avoided altogether had we had a roundtable discussion, and you know, the policy revisions were discussed amongst all 9, the board as a whole, and then after that, you know, it'll basically it'll basically make the agenda then in itself for the policy committee to go and do their work and bring back policy revisions for a first read.
All right, so you're looking at sort of like a hybrid, a little bit of a hybrid structure, basically. Exactly. Just a couple comments to that. Look, I believe that the committee reports are hugely important because the committee is where, the committee reports at our board meetings are where the committees come forward and explain in detail whatever the committee is, what the committee's work is, and what the rationale is behind a resolution on the agenda, a new project, whatever you folks are doing. So the committee reports are important, and I'm just thinking out loud, perhaps if the committee reports came, for something like policy in particular, came before the item made it to the agenda, maybe that would allow for that type of input and discussion that you're talking about. So that's my first thought. The second thought is policies are really the only item on a board agenda that actually has to be voted on twice before it actually gets implemented. So there's lots of opportunity for, like tonight. Tonight was only the first reading. Those policies did not get adopted tonight. Lots of opportunity for the board members to provide input. And then the third point is, even if you're not on the committee, if we continue with the pure committee structure for policy, we do have the old business and new business sections of the agenda. So any board member who's looked at our policies and says, hey, committee, I think you need to come up with a new policy or revise the policy, that would be the appropriate time on the agenda to address it. So
Yeah,
those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I appreciate that input. That it's good. It's just that it also gives the opportunity for board members and community members to start wondering why why is this policy being proposed to change now? Like what was the course of events that led to this policy change? Like why are we discussing this now? Why was it tabled? Why in 2 weeks did we get a revision back to have these policies reread again when everything takes months? Yet we had a second revision in 2 weeks. I mean, you guys, policy committees, actually, you guys are doing a great job, because we have in Buildings and Grounds hasn't met once. You guys met twice already. But either way, if it was a committee as a whole, policy is just too important. It's got to be. I think it should be a committee as a whole, because
I mean, listen, Mark made some suggestions, right? So I'm going to make a motion that we postpone the vote.
Well, it hasn't even gotten, I don't think you got a second.
No, I would second it.
Oh, you did? Okay,
Second
fair
it.
enough. I
So,
just want to make sure
okay,
I follow
and
the process.
I would vote to bring it to the policy committee for further discussion, to look at, recommendations, and that's what I'm proposing.
So you're making a motion to postpone the vote on going to a hybrid structure?
Yes.
That
The chance to look.
needs a second.
To look at the chance for concerns and come back with recommendations. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I mean, my only thought about this whole conversation is that it's a great conversation. I'm hearing what you're saying, but I also think we already have that in place. I think and this is why I think we should have another, policy should discuss it, because I'm hearing what Mark's saying, and we already have all of these things in place already to have this discussion, just like we're having right now in front of everybody.
Right.
So I think it's already happening.
But
I
after the
like
fact, yeah.
So I think what Mark said, which I thought, and actually Christina and I and everyone in our curriculum meetings, we just talked about, sometimes it's challenging to have the meeting and then come in.
Oh, it doesn't have to be
So
the
if we
same
can
night.
get away from that, which I think is important, that we don't come from the committee and then go
Right.
right into a vote,
Yeah.
I think that will address what you're saying, because if that conversation is happening, then it's happening here,
Right,
live,
yeah.
like it is right now.
Understood, but no. I'm not saying, it doesn't have to be the same night. And it could be an entire meeting unto itself if there's enough revisions that are coming down. Like, I didn't even realize Strauss Esme comes and says, these policies, we're putting up for a revision. Like, knowing that even further would make me drive this point home, because, okay, I appreciate that they're saying they have revisions for us, but they don't live in our community. Like, the 9 of us live in our community, and everybody here lives in our community, I think. I'm sorry, but, those are the people that we should be having the conversations in front of. They should be able to ask questions at the end, and then from there, the policy committee can, go and make their revisions.
Well, to piggyback on what you just said with regards to how the policy came about and everything else, and it seemed like it was too speedy and everything else, that would be no different than your motion right there with regards to not being able to think about it, digest it, and everything else. So therefore, what I'm doing is I'm referring it back to the committee for policy, for us to take into consideration exactly what you said, what Mark said, and everything else, and we will discuss with absolute, I promise you, it will be discussed to make it more, I don't even know what the words are, but to piggyback on what you're saying.
So
I just don't follow.
What
how-
I'm saying is that I'm looking to postpone this vote until the policy committee has looked at it, has made their recommendations, have looked at the concerns, and come back with a recommendation. Nothing will be voted on or anything, but it's our recommendations. Because we don't want to, as you had said, we don't want to speed this up, and by making that motion, what you just made, and voting on that, that's speeding up the process without anybody digesting it, because we just got it 5 minutes ago, or 10 minutes
Right,
ago.
yeah, I mean,
So instead of making a rash decision, I am fully putting a motion together with a second that I already have to vote to send it to the policy committee to have a chance to look at the changes or possible changes and the recommendations.
but you see where,
Yeah, any other discussions with that?
yeah, but you see how, like, having a roundtable discussion in public was beneficial, you know, rather than taking it back to the committee and closed doors, and then coming back and we get the revisions and we're looking at it going, well, I wonder, you know, why did that happen? Like, you know, like, we're not in that discussion, but
So
we're a
then what-
policy-making entity, but we're making policies and we're not in the initial discussion. I think we should be part of the initial, all 9 of us should be part of the initial discussion.
So I respectfully hear what you're saying, and I'm going to do roll call for that. I'm not ignoring it. It's going to be discussed in a policy, if everybody agrees upon that.
Okay, but then what happened to my motion?
Your motion, his motion is a motion to postpone it and to send it to committee. That gets voted on first. If that gets defeated, we go back to your motion.
Oh, okay.
That's what Robert's rules says. My response or his? Oh, sorry, yeah. So Dr. Heller made a motion to postpone the vote and refer it to committee. That motion gets voted on now. It was seconded. If that motion gets defeated, we go back to Mr. Paterno's vote to come up with this hybrid structure that he just discussed. Okay. So right now we're just voting on the motion to postpone.
Yep.
Mr. Caravello.
Mrs. Amster?
No.
Mr. Petruno?
No.
Ms. Piernick?
Yes.
Mrs. Rosado?
No.
Mrs. Shrem?
Yes.
Mrs. Salachi?
Yes.
Mrs. Strafasi?
Yes.
Mrs. Branch?
Yes.
And Dr. Heller?
Yes.
Can I just say something?
Am I
real
able
quick?
to make a statement too? I'm sorry.
Wait, hold
I
on.
just,
Hold on. Jen, you had said something?
I was just gonna say, because if we, I mean, I'd like that we're gonna postpone it because it gives me time to think. But also, if we do it for policy, what makes you not want to do it for any other committee? And then that's gonna be,
yeah.
it's a
so
lot, you know what I mean?
Agreed, completely
But
agreed.
that's why I'm
But
saying yes to postpone, so we can like think.
Right, right. So I had actually thought about that, but the thing is, if you look at any of the other committees, right? They, I don't want to say are subcommittees to the policy committee, but the policy committee trumps all. The policy committee is
I mean,
literally
curriculum's pretty big too, because that's what our schools are.
right, but we
you know.
don't.
Buildings and ground is all
Understood.
curriculum.
And there's-
We don't, we
Budgeting.
don't, we're a policy-making entity is what we do.
Yes.
So, you know, we're not
Safety
a
and
buildings and
security,
grounds
it's all important.
entity. We're
Well,
not.
but we're everything. That's,
Right, but
we're
it's
the
all
board.
driven by the policy though.
Right, so.
You know, and in, basically, I just think that if I was a resident sitting in the stand, you know, the chairs watching, I would want to see the transparency of the discussion, and I would want to see where the policy revisions came from, because there's just, you know, like, you get the changes, and it's like, okay, like, you know, some of them are, you know, valid, and they need to be done, you know, times are changing, but others don't make sense to some people.
Aldo, I think what we need to do is really think about like how we're gonna do this, right? So like, when are we going to meet? Is it going to be after Strauss Esme comes out with an alert, right? Not necessarily in the beginning of the year. Is it going to be, you know, I'm just thinking of tabling it for now and just talking about it more to come up with, it's very broad right now, and I think we need to come up with something very specific.
Yeah, I think you're saying process, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm,
Process.
and I think that's, I
So
mean, I'll
I
say that
appreciate
too.
everybody's comments. We do have an executive after this. It has been it has been brought to the policy committee on vote. We will discuss it further and go from there, but we're going to move on to public comments because I'm sure people want to go home. Those who wish to speak should state their full name and place of residence. Comments should be limited to 3 minutes. Please use the timer in front to be mindful of your time. Members of the public should be respectful and avoid back and forth or debate with administration, professionals, or board members responding to the inquiry or comment. We will respond when necessary once the individual has completed their statement. Again, no back and forth, be respectful and civil. Members will withhold comment until after public comment if they so choose. Vinny?
Sure. First is Mr. Leo Dableman.
So I wanted to thank Mr. Petruno for bringing this very important issue forward and not letting it go. Because frankly, this discussion underpins a lot of the other discussions we've had here and a lot of the issues we've talked about in other forums, namely the issue of trust or complete lack thereof. Today was a good day, today was a good meeting, everything was positive, everybody was positive, there was no rancor or contentiousness or anything like that. We're in a good moment, but fundamentally, nothing has changed about the relationship of this administration and the community. There are deep problems. I can tell you that seeing about 60% of the room get up on command and walk out at a certain moment, with at least a few of them being high-level members of the school staff, sends a terrible message. And they're really nice people. It's not their fault. But whoever organized that did tremendous damage today. I will also tell you that I don't know, I wasn't here last week. I'm sure it was terrible, I mean last month. I don't know who makes the decision to invite armed police officers into this meeting. At this point, by my simple mathematical count, we have more bullets than people in this room. Whoever makes that decision, whoever hasn't sent at least a couple of these fine gentlemen home to their families by now, should be deeply ashamed, but also is doing damage to community relations. It is a terrible, terrible thing that we will all deal with for months, you know, after we get past masks and COVID and all this other crap. It is a part of what we have to deal with. And in that environment, when you guys talk about policies or changing policies, the question that Mr. Petruno raised, this idea that, you know, do we have to do it? Are we managing by legislating? Policymaking isn't a way to address an outlier event. Frankly, whoever runs this meeting should have the control to deal with an unpleasant or unfortunate situation, or just move on, right? It's unpleasant, it happens. And new law and new policy is not needed for every outlier. If you're making policies based on something that happened once, twice, 3 times, that's a terrible failure, even if it's not a bad policy. If the only reason for making it is a outlier event, you're failing in your long-term duty. Please consider it as we move way, way past where we have been right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Vin?
Sure, next up is Anu Shanbag.
Good evening, board. There is a saying that we should count our blessings. This is a saying I take to heart, especially after the difficult past 2 years where we lived in fear of getting sick, our loved ones getting sick, and many of us did get severely ill, or worse, we lost loved ones. So as a reminder to count our blessings, another parent made a list of some accomplishments of our school district in the last few years. And in a spirit of gratitude, I would like to list them here. because we should never make the mistake of taking the good for granted. Our school district implemented full-day kindergarten. ESIP saving the district millions of dollars and providing much-needed facility improvements. We had numerous building upgrades like nursing suites, both middle libraries, roofing plan to put us in a good place so we can weather state aid cuts without affecting programs. Focus upon mental health. We have 3 mental health specialists, 2 general education psychologists and 1 social worker. We revamped our placement process, which translated to moving from one status, i.e., you make it or you don't, to a process of 3 different pathways, allowing kids to earn their way into advanced courses. We send more students to the MCVSD, which is the Monmouth County Vocational School District, than any other school. We quadruple Homedale. We added numerous after-school club additions. We were recognized by Google as a reference district. This means we are one of the top districts in the nation. We received recognition from Achieve 3000 during COVID. We were highlighted in their white paper as one of the top districts in the nation. DeFino Central Elementary was selected as a blue ribbon school. Replacement of active boards with active panels in all K-2 and special education classrooms in Morganville. We took an abandoned building and are turning it into our buildings and grounds hub. Addition of outside the box and educationally focused positions like having a dyslexia specialist, head data coaches for ELA and mathematics, etc. We have an incredible focus upon the arts. Our middle schools go and compete against high schools and win. And the result of all this work that goes on behind the scenes is that 98% of our school district kids go to college. So let us remind ourselves that the context of our problems is indeed a strong, flexible school district. And that is the reason that many, including myself, moved to the city of Marlboro. We are privileged in many ways. Let us not take that fact for granted.
Thank you. Vin?
Sure, next up is Miss Irene Deckerman.
I noticed you guys stopped while you were the microphone. Hi, Irene Deckerman, Isabel Court, Morganville, New Jersey. I just have a couple of questions about some things that were discussed today that I wanted to just clarify. Dr. Hibbs, you mentioned that this year or next year is going to be the first year that students have AC in the schools, which is wonderful. But correct me if I'm wrong, there is a timing that only certain schools are going to get AC this year, and then next year is going to be another set of schools and another. I think there's some kind of a schedule for it. In terms of the budget, I noticed on one of the slides there was a mention of energy savings. And I'm wondering how those energy savings are going to be obtained when, for the rest of us, it looks like all of our heating and electric bills have been increasing. So I want to make sure that that's taken into account in the budget. I believe I've heard that for Marlboro residents, the average increase is about 22% this year. One of the slides mentioned that that you guys were acquiring iPads for K classes. I'm just wondering what those are going to be used for. What do little kids that are in kindergarten need an iPad for? And I just wanted to make a comment about Aldo's policy idea. I think it's a wonderful idea because I actually have 2 notes here of questions that I have from your discussions. So I think it would be wonderful to get community engagement in those. So one of my questions is that comment that Christina had asked about somebody being able to only speak once. Does that mean only once per first session and once for second session, or only once per night? So I just want to clarify that. And then the conversation, the policy that you guys were talking about where the president gets to ask the board member if they would like to respond to a comment. My question is, what if the president does not know who that comment is alluding to? So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Comments will be at the end. Responses, I'm sorry. Vin, next, please.
Sure. Next up is Paresh Shah. Paresh Shah. Okay, not here. Next up is Moshe Grant.
Good evening, Marlboro Board of Education, Moshe Grant, 8 Southbury Road. I was observing this communication back and forth over here, and although as a member of the community, I gotta say that this was one of the most impressive arguments I've ever seen from someone who's fairly new on the board, and I applaud you for that, for what it's worth. Now, the policy committee, the mission of the Marlboro Township Policy School Policy Committee is to discuss, revise, and recommend adoptions of district policies that are consistent with both federal and state laws and that are in compliance with state monitoring standards. I think it's missing something over here. I think what we're missing is the presence of the community, because in all reality, none of you would have been sitting here if not for the parents of the community. And all I'm reading here is state, state, federal, state, 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 federal, and the question is, what are you doing here then? When I asked in the past, what's gonna happen if we're not gonna follow certain policies, I was answered by a very nice gentleman over here that if you're not gonna follow certain policies, the state is gonna come and take over and it's gonna be effectively a state-run school. Can anyone over here explain to me right now, how is it not an effectively state-run school? And if you have a committee that is not put together by the entire group of bodies of people that were voted in by the community, it's a biased committee. It's just simple as that. If someone was voted in for the best intentions of the parents in the community, and this someone is not within a committee that comes up and revises or makes policies, what are you doing here? Why are you all here? Are you here to serve the state, or are you here to serve us? We voted you in, not the state. Now, we vote you in, then you go and get your classes, and then they teach you how they want you to run it, and then you come back and say, if we're not gonna run their policies, it's gonna be a state-run school. The state is running this school.
Thank you. Vin?
Sure, next up is Mrs. Meg Fitzsimmons.
Hi, good evening. I'm Megan Fitzsimmons. I live in Atlantic Highlands, but I'm also the Child Study Team Social Worker at the David C. Abbott Early Learning Center. I'm here because I wanted to just expand on something that there was a discussion earlier tonight with Dr. Hibbs and Mrs. Amster about the social emotional learning. And actually, Mrs. Piernick, you did a great job talking about the activities at the Early Learning Center this month. But I just wanted to give you some insight because I'm involved with that at my school. So the Early Learning Center has 3, 4, and 5-year-olds. So even pre-pandemic, we were struggling to find activities that were age appropriate or assemblies to bring in. So what we've done over the years is we have a committee that meets once a month of all the school counselors. The Early Learning Center, I'm the representative because we don't have a dedicated school counselor for our school. And it's Mrs. Tardio, who's the VP here at Memorial. And over the years, we work with Rutgers, we work with our in-house teachers because they've been doing this for a long time. And each school has developed age-appropriate activities each month for the pillars. So this month is kindness. Actually, the pillars are right there on the wall for the whole district. So every month in every school, we're all doing age-appropriate activities for each pillar. And I think the hope is that, especially for a student who starts out in pre-K, by the time they get to 8th grade, every month they're going to keep hearing these same ideals, and their activities are changing based upon their age, and so that it just becomes part of who they are, part of their character. At the Early Learning Center this month, we've done a lot of great things, and I've been getting really positive feedback from my teachers. We have a committee at the building that meets once a month. Mr. Perno, our principal, Mrs. Darcy, the PTO president's part of that, as well as staff members. And we plan ahead for the next month's pillar. What are going to be the school-wide activities that we're going to do? And it ranges in everything from, we have videos that we show, we have books, we have resources in my office that are available to all the teachers. And this month, kindness has been really, the kids have really just run with this. We did on Valentine's Day, I think it was a district-wide Pink Shirt Day. And if you don't know what Pink Shirt is, you can Google it. Came out of a high school in Canada. And there was a boy who wore a pink shirt to school and was bullied. And some other students saw this, didn't like what was happening. So they went out and purchased a whole bunch of pink shirts and other items, distributed amongst their friends, and then they all wore them to school one day in support of this child who was bullied. So we did a pink shirt or pink out day at the Early Learning Center on Valentine's Day. And then we have little paper pink shirts that children in the school, when they're caught being kind, are given a shirt. And we have a bulletin board, thanks to our preschoolers, who talked about, who did sprinkle kindness everywhere. They did donuts, and on the sprinkles are all the different ways that they're showing, they can show kindness to them, to their family, to their community, to their classmates. The other bulletin board is a giant pink shirt, courtesy of our art teacher, and that's where we're posting all of the pink shirts that are given out during this whole month. And that's surrounded by a kindness chain, and each link is an activity or a way to show kindness that the students at the preschool came up with. And then the only other thing I wanted to say about that is that we did have one class who went to art, and the art teacher had to talk to their teacher for a minute while the students went in and took their seats. When she turned around, that entire class had independently and spontaneously cleaned up from the mess that unfortunately the class before left behind. So I got a phone call from Ms. Fix, who's our wonderful art teacher, to say, I need a pink shirt for everyone in this classroom. And I was more than happy to bring them down. The kids wrote their names on them, and they went up on the board. So we get creative. We have a database that we update. Anybody in the school can add to it in terms of resources, whether it's lessons or books or stories or songs. So that's how we've been adjusting, especially because pretty much forever we haven't been able to find a good age-appropriate activity to bring into the classroom.
Sorry, Ms. Fitzsimmons, time is up, I'm sorry.
So that's it, okay?
Great job, Meg.
Thank you.
Great job, Megan. Thank you.
Brandy, could I just make a comment to her? Is that okay?
After this,
Oh, okay, thank you.
Okay, so
Any
next-
more?
Oh, next up is Mrs. Jennifer Arias.
Hello, Jennifer Arias from Hoover Court in Marlboro. I'd like to respond to some comments that were made a little bit earlier. As a parent and a taxpayer, I'm actually more interested in the curriculum committee and what they're deciding for my two children who are in the school. So I'd like to direct that your way, Mr. Pachuno, as you seem to be advocating for increased transparency in this space. I don't have time generally to get into the minutia of everything that the board is discussing. I'd like to be an active parent participant, but quite frankly, I miss tucking my two children in tonight to stay here and make this comment. I wanted to wait till the majority of the agenda was completed so that I could speak once and address anything that was important to me. So that's kind of it. And I thank you all for taking a moment to listen to me and for considering our opinions as you try and do the best for our kids and the community. Thanks.
Thank you. Vin?
Oh, Mrs. Angela Visotsky, sorry.
Angela Visotsky, Markham Drive. I just want to say thank you for the discussions that were held today. Very calm, very polite, no harsh tone of voice towards the community, towards the Board of Ed. So I really appreciate that, even though it took a little bit of longer time. It was very welcoming to hear as a community member. I just would like to say that there's different things that the community could bring to you, just like you were sitting on the committee and bringing back to us. There's a lot of different ideas, a lot of different experiences that each of us could help you. And those community community involvement sessions could really help our kids out. So I really appreciate Aldo for bringing that up, and to have the rest of the board consider that for some of our important policy, curriculum, and budget meetings, just like we have the workshops with Vinny. Last week and today, I also sent a long list. You saw an email of a lot of questions that I had related to the agenda. I was just wondering if there could be a motion or some kind of recommendation to spread the time out from when the agenda items come and when we have our meetings. If we could push that a week in advance, if I have all these questions, all these people have all these questions, I'm sure you have all of your questions that you're going back and forth. If we had more time, then we could come to these meetings prepared more and have a better discussion. And last, I just want to thank all the schools and for Dugan today in my daughter's classroom for 2/22/22. They made tacos today and learned life skills and had fun in eating them without their masks on, away from each other, without dividers. And she was very happy that she was able to see herself on Facebook today. They went in and took pictures of their class. So she was very helpful. So I thank all the teachers, even though sometimes we don't see it, they are doing a good job. And parents are concerned. They come up here with emotion. They're scared, they're nervous, sometimes intimidating, sometimes not. We just want to bring our concerns to you. So please just feel the back and forth that we have as parents. Thank you.
Thank you. Vin?
I have no one else left on my list.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to close public comments. Do I have a second?
Can Kathleen and I respond to?
Yeah, we are. It's gonna be right after.
Okay.
I have to, yeah, that's how we did it, first one. So, absolutely. The second, Aldo, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Okay, now we're gonna move on for board comments. Kathleen, you have it?
I'm just going to speak this way to her.
Yeah, you want to take it off the mic or
No,
something?
I just wanted to thank you for giving me the whole update. I was blessed that my last child spent some time in kindergarten at Melk, and you were part of his child study team. So just to let you know, he's in 7th grade now. I know. So I just wanted to thank you. I know you're a huge advocate for all children, and I was blessed to have you as part of his team. So thank you.
Piggybacking off of what Kathleen said, I'm a school counselor, and mental health is of utmost importance, and it's a passion of mine. So speaking of that, we didn't meet as a special ed committee, but I would like to see not only pillars of character, but SEL competencies added to the lessons that are done and embedded in our curriculum. And, you know, we didn't talk about this, but I did have a question about ESY. I reached out to Dr. Blair, and there's certain things that happen before meetings. You know, we get our green notes, and, you know, we have questions. I reached out to Dr. Blair and asked, why is ESY being reduced by a whole week? And she immediately answered me, and I got my questions. So there's some things that happen before our board meetings that sometimes don't necessarily have to be done in public. But yes, I hear what you're saying, Aldo, so I look forward to continuing that conversation to see how we can make that streamlined process happen more effectively.
Anybody else?
I'd just like to, I think it was Mr. Grant that made a comment about having parents involved, but we're all parents. I mean, I'm looking at everybody, we all are parents. That maybe wasn't the case with the board in past, but we are all parents. And so their parent perspective is within this board. I just thought I should make that mention.
No, it's not a back and forth. I'm sorry. Anybody else? Eric, would you like to comment?
Just very quickly. AC, Vin, the number one is Dugan, right, and the alternate with Defino?
Sure, we do have a plan. So we were trying to do this over 3 to 5 years, depending on how the aid cuts would work and how our budgets would fall into place on need. Sometimes if we're not able to do it one year, we would have to table it or build up our reserves again. So right now it's Dugan as the primary, Defino is the alternate. We would get those two done. And then you would have Robertsville and Asher together, and then Marrell. Now, if we can only do one year, we may just do Marrell first and then do Robertsville and Asher in the third phase. The reason we want to do Robertsville and Asher together is because when we go out to bid, we would want the same contractor to work on both those schools, not have two different contractors in that vicinity, that area, working on, you know, the schools in a different manner. We'd rather have one contractor bid that one project out as a whole, with Robertsville or Asher the base and the other one the alternate.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah.
Hey, yeah, that's actually, that's a great idea, because I know by doing that, you can probably offset the mobilization costs too, because there should only be one mobilization then, because it's sharing a parking lot, you know? It's basically
Correct, it would
one
be
job site.
one shipping container
Right,
for one
yeah,
contract.
Exactly, that's awesome. What about, does the HVAC projects, does this include any electrical upgrades that need to be done to facilitate the, you know, the extra power that's needed for the systems?
Sure. So this does include electrical upgrades. So we did have our electrical loads measured before we, you know, we really dove into trying to do this. So we had basically the infrastructure measured, the electrical loads and capacities measured, and everything came out great as far as no, you know, no any big increased upgrades to the infrastructure where it would cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars. If anything, it's really just adding, you know, certain breakers to certain boxes and extending the electrical output, but the actual load is fine for all the schools.
No, that's great. Okay, thank you.
Then you want to also quickly take the budget for the energy savings included in the budget?
Sure. So we are aware of the utility bill increases. We're seeing that as well. We're seeing that from, even though we saved money on the ESIP program, we're seeing the utility rates actually being raised by the providers. So we are aware of that and budgeting for that. In the budget presentation, there was the ESIP interest payment that we have to make. It's based off of an amortization schedule. We have to make that every year, and that is the big ESIP project that we did for $19 million. The district share was $3.6 million, and the rest was funded through the ESIP incentive program, which is basically a loan. So that is the payment that I was mentioning, and the electrical savings was the clocks. So we're trying to gear away from analogs where they're directly tied into, you know, electrical wiring. So we were trying to steer away from that to try to, you know, save some money. But I agree, the rates are not helping us at all.
Sorry, just, may I?
Oh, go.
Oh, okay. Sorry, just two questions. One, the solar panels that were installed at the middle school, just had a question. Does it work for the school district like it would for a homeowner, where they get the solar renewable energy credits? Like, is the district getting SRECs that they can sell on the market and recoup some of the funding?
Right, so we have basically we pay a monthly invoice for usage. So basically we'll get the invoice in for usage, and in return we'll see those credits offset on our JCP&L bills. So we will see offsetting credits. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to see a lot yet, because the district has been working with the township just to do some closeout permitting that has unfortunately prohibited us from being able to turn them on and be able to, you know, realize the full savings. And there's also the rebates that we're entitled to through BPU and direct energy that we qualify for. I think we were eligible to get up to 470,000, and as of today we've received about 270,000. So we're still waiting on some.
So, and all right, so but the district will qualify them for the SRAC program?
I have to check for the SRAC program.
Okay.
Right now I know how the operational piece works, but we can definitely look into seeing how that works.
Yeah, just out of curiosity, because we have them, and it always helps getting that check, you know. The last question was just the budget. If you don't mind, just a vague question, just I was trying to understand when I was going through it. Am I able to ask a budget question?
Go.
Okay. I was trying to, there's a lot of information in the binder, and I was trying to see, when we compare last year's numbers with the projected numbers for next year, how are we seeing, well, first off, why are we seeing, like, ESS is a contracted service going forward, right? So will we see a reduction in salaries because the subs are no longer salaried by the district? Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's...
So in your budget binder, anything that is usually over a 10% variance as far as percentage-wise, whether it's an increase or a decrease, usually we have, whether it be principals or myself, we put in explanations of why that is decreasing or increasing so much. Just to give you basically an FYI, hey, this is increasing because we have a sub-provider. This is decreasing because we no longer need sub-salaries, and you'll see those in there. And it'll all be notes next to everything that has big deviations where it'll tell you why it's decreasing or why increasing. And if there is one that's missing, feel free to email me and always ask me why there's such a big change, but usually in there it's what was actually budgeted for last year, what was actually spent, and then what we're proposing. And then
Awesome.
that's how you
Yeah,
can follow.
I was trying to digest it. That thing is a lot of info.
Yeah, I don't know how I don't wear
Thank you.
glasses yet.
Thank you, Aldo.
There was a. I'll try to go. That's okay. I'll try to go fast. I'm just going to answer. I think that you already mentioned this, Dr. Heller. The policy was that you can speak once per public comment
Yes.
session.
Yeah,
right?
100%.
And the other question was, what if the president doesn't know who the comment is alluded to?
Then the member would have to address me and just say, "Can I speak?" and then go from there.
Okay. And the other concept of pushing the agendas, there's really no way to do that. What you won't see on the back end is the hours and hours and hours and turmoil that goes into making an agenda. So there's absolutely no way we could move that back a week and get there, because board business just simply wouldn't get done. So as it stands, we really go at a breakneck pace to even get that done for that agenda. So from my lens, there's absolutely no ways to do that in any way, shape, or form, and then still operate the way that we operate. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I was just going to add on, because when we do have things that are ready, like policies or other things, the administration shares that earlier. So when it can be done, I think you demonstrate that you try to do it, versus like the actual agenda is fluid. So you know, right? If I'm
Yeah.
understanding that?
Yeah, so I mean, so you're talking about like the policies that went out earlier last week. So that whenever we have things that we can share earlier, we do, but the content of the agenda going live to the public, we really work up until that happens. It happens all day that Friday, and you know, it could be we're waiting on a final approval for a teacher, or we need a recommendation, or Vinny's waiting on a specific bid to come in. So we really, you know, we really try to maximize time, because it's a very big school district with, you know, the agendas they're enormous.
Well, and the only other thing I can think of is, because it happened with the curriculum, is that when we're in draft mode, that goes into that draft on the website. So as soon as that happens, right, Mr. Vallone, it goes up into draft, and then you all can see that as we see it. And that happens not the Friday before the meeting, that happens when it's been approved through the draft mode, and then you can view it. So I think someone else said that curriculum's really important. I think she may have had to go home, but so there, you know, when it can be done earlier, it is, to my understanding.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. Hold on.
So, executive function. We're talking.
I like it.
The iPad.
Oh, the iPads? Sorry. iPads are embedded deeply into kindergarten classrooms. They use them for tons of learning. If you, you know, you can certainly reach out to Mr. Perno. He can give you an exhaustive list of all the programs that we use and how we do it. But those iPads are actually budgeted because we're forecasting extra kindergarten sections. That's why we're buying them, right, Mr. Blum? So they're to keep those new sections in line with all of our other sections.
Okay. So executive function, I feel that's what, anybody who knows what that is understands. Okay, thank you. Executive session resolution. Be it resolved that in accordance with the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act, the Marlboro Township Board of Education shall conduct a closed executive session pursuant to the expectations prescribed by NJSA 10-4-12 for the purpose of discussing matters of attorney-client privilege and personnel matters, and a grievance hearing. It is anticipated that the length of this executive meeting will be 60 minutes, and that actions will not be taken in public after the executive session. Be it further resolved that the minutes of the executive session will be released when the need of for confidentiality in accordance with NJSA 10-4-12 no longer applies. Can I have a motion to go into executive?
Aye.
I don't even.
Me, Jess.
Jessica. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Whoever, Jill. And all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those and no, say no. We have the ayes. Goodbye. Say no. Have a good night. Stay safe and healthy.